Chapter 1, Back from the Dead. In her sleep, Saraphina felt a heavy weight pressing down on her. A sharp pain jolted her eyes open. Ethan! Her heart pounded wildly, a mix of shock and delight. Those deep-set features, those intense eyes, that chiseled, handsome face, who else could it be but her Ethan Lancaster? But he had passed away 3 months ago. How could he suddenly be here? A dream, it must be another dream for the past 3 months. She had suffered from sleepless nights. On the rare occasion she managed to drift off, he would appear in her dreams. But in her dreams, he was always as gentle and doting as he used to be. Why was she having an erotic dream tonight? Gazing at the man's familiar face, hearing his familiar, ragged breaths, a wave of sorrow washed over Saraphina. An erotic dream, so be it. When he was alive, they had never been so intimate. As long as she could be with him, she was willing to do anything. With that thought, Saraphina wrapped her arms around the man's neck and pulled herself up to kiss him. "Ethan, I love you, just as I thought." "A total wench," Ethan Lancaster sneered, turning his head to avoid her lips. Saraphina was taken aback. "Ethan, what's wrong with you?" "Shut up." The tearing pain was too real, shocking her into full consciousness. Although the lights were off, the moonlight was bright tonight, illuminating everything in the room with perfect clarity. This wasn't a dream, this was real, Sterling. "Ethan, tell me I'm not dreaming, you're not dead, right?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her heart was a storm of shock, disbelief, and overwhelming joy. "Ha," he scoffed. "Are you disappointed that I'm not dead?" He practically spat the words out, his voice laced with ice, sending a chill down her spine. Saraphina's eyes widened in confusion as she stared at the man above her. "Ethan, why would you say that?" It was him, there was no mistake. His face was unchanged, his voice the same, but his aura had turned cold. His shadowed eyes seemed to churn with a thick, terrifying rage. "Aren't you the one who wanted me dead the most?" "Why the pretense?" the man grunted before releasing her. "I'm the person who wants you to be alive more than anyone," Saraphina cried out, ignoring the throbbing pain in her jaw where he had gripped it. Even if this was a dream, she couldn't let him misunderstand her. "You vain and deceitful woman, how long have I been dead? You couldn't wait to fix yourself up and find a new man?" The man sneered in disgust as he got out of bed. The sound of the door slamming shut jolted Saraphina from her dreamlike daze. Her mind cleared instantly, and she scrambled out of bed. The next second, her eyes were seared by a glaring spot of red on the sheets. It was her virgin blood. Could it be that everything that just happened was real? Impossible. 3 months ago, she had watched with her own eyes as Ethan, after months of suffering, finally closed his for the last time. How could he have come back from the dead? Without another thought, Saraphina ignored the ache in her body, quickly threw on a nightgown, and ran out barefoot. Ethan, Chapter 2. It's him, but not him. Saraphina searched every corner of the apartment, but there was no sign of Ethan Lancaster. Not a shadow of a man to be found. But the virgin blood on the bed remained, filling her with dread. The next morning, Saraphina immediately asked the building management to check the security footage. Sure enough, she saw a man enter her apartment at 11:00 p.m. and leave over an hour later. And the tall, elegant man in the video was none other than her lover who had supposedly died 3 months ago, Ethan Lancaster. "Miss Vance, isn't that your boyfriend? Did something happen?" the property manager asked with concern. Saraphina's mind was a complete blank. She shook her head numbly. "No, it's nothing." She had no idea how she left the complex or how she ended up standing in front of the Lancaster Group's headquarters. The only thing she was sure of was that a man who looked exactly like the deceased Ethan Lancaster had entered her home without permission and had taken her virginity. Saraphina walked into the Lancaster building and was about to go to the front desk when she saw a man and a woman, surrounded by a crowd of people, walking out of the elevator. The moment she saw the noble and aloof man, she froze. It was him, Ethan Lancaster, and smiling sweetly on his arm was the city's top socialite, Fiona Ellsworth. They looked like a perfect match. Without a second thought, Saraphina ran over and blocked their path. "Ethan, is it really you?" she asked, her eyes red. Her voice trembled uncontrollably with emotion. Even though all the evidence told her that Ethan Lancaster was truly alive and had returned healthy and well, seeing him in the flesh, under the bright lights and watchful eyes of everyone, still filled her with a joy so intense it felt unreal. Upon seeing Saraphina, Ethan Lancaster and Fiona Ellsworth both stopped. The surrounding staff also paused, staring at her curiously. The man's sharp eyes narrowed as he spoke in a low, displeased tone. "If it's not me, is it a ghost?" A flash of annoyance crossed Fiona Ellsworth's exquisitely made-up face. She pulled her arm back, crossed them, and pouted. "Ethan, why is this Miss Vance so annoying and persistent?" "She's just an outsider. We'll get rid of her," the man said, raising a hand to pat her shoulder reassuringly. Ethan, Fiona called him Ethan. He really was Ethan Lancaster. The immense joy of her lover's return from the dead made Saraphina overlook his annoyed expression. Tears of happiness streamed down her face. She took a step forward, her trembling hands reaching for his face. "Ethan, you're not dead. This is wonderful." "Miss Vance, please have some self-respect." Ethan Lancaster suddenly raised his hand and coldly slapped hers away. The force of the blow sent Saraphina stumbling backward, nearly causing her to fall. She stared at him, wide-eyed with shock. When she looked at him again, she was struck by the fury and contempt churning in his deep eyes. How could Ethan's eyes, which used to hold only gentleness, become so sinister? So cold that she couldn't even meet his gaze. "Security, please escort this lady out," Ethan Lancaster commanded coldly before striding away. Fiona Ellsworth smirked triumphantly. As she passed Saraphina, she leaned in and whispered tauntingly in her ear. "Saraphina, you nearly got Ethan killed last time, and I haven't even settled the score with you yet. From now on, if you dare to come near him again, I'll make you pay." With that, her red lips curled into a cold smile, a flash of cruelty in her captivating eyes. She turned and on her high heels, hurried after Ethan. "Ethan, wait for me." "Miss Vance, please leave," two security guards said as they took hold of Saraphina's arms. "I can walk myself." Saraphina shook off their hands and rushed after them, but she could only watch as Ethan Lancaster and Fiona Ellsworth got into a car and sped away. Standing alone in the vast parking lot, Saraphina was consumed by a profound sense of confusion and disbelief. He was clearly Ethan Lancaster, but his expression and his attitude toward her were completely different. What on earth was going on? Chapter 3. He has no brothers. Saraphina was utterly bewildered. She thought back to the gentle and warm man she once knew and found it impossible to reconcile him with the cold, icy person before her now. Biting her lip, she took out her phone and dialed a number. "Dr. Kane, regarding my boyfriend's condition, is it possible for him to suddenly wake up and recover so quickly?" 6 months ago, Ethan Lancaster had been in a car accident and suffered a severe brain injury. The Lancaster family had taken him to major hospitals around the world for 3 months, but he remained in a coma. During that time, she had taken his medical records to every doctor friend she knew, but the answer was always the same. There was nothing they could do. 3 months ago, she had secretly traveled to the hospital in the United States where he was staying and had witnessed the doctors inform the Lancaster family that Ethan was brain dead, with no hope of recovery, and they recommended taking him off life support. However, the Lancaster family had kept Ethan's condition a secret from the media. The public only knew that he had been in an accident and was hospitalized. No one knew if he had recovered or been discharged. Saraphina didn't know why they were hiding it, and she didn't dare to ask. After all, she was only Ethan Lancaster's secret girlfriend, never introduced to the public. On the phone, Dr. Winston Keynes spoke in a comforting tone. "Saraphina, it's been so long. Are you still having trouble accepting it? If you're feeling down, I can come over and we can do something to take your mind off things." "No, that's not necessary. Just tell me, what are the chances of him waking up?" Saraphina asked anxiously. Dr. Kane sighed. 0. By the 3rd month, his bodily functions had already begun to deteriorate. Even if a miracle happened and he woke up, he would spend the rest of his life mostly in bed or a wheelchair. "Saraphina, I'm so sorry for your loss." With that, he hung up. Listening to the dial tone, Saraphina's eyes filled with even deeper suspicion. Back at the magazine office, she used her authority as editor-in-chief to summon 2 of her most capable subordinates. She handed them a photo and a file on Ethan Lancaster. "Use all your resources and channels to find out if Ethan Lancaster has a twin, or if there's anyone who looks so much like him that even his closest loved ones couldn't tell the difference." "Chief, isn't Ethan Lancaster still recovering abroad from his car accident?" "Are we doing a feature on him?" one of her subordinates asked curiously. Even those closest to her didn't know she was Ethan Lancaster's girlfriend. "It's something more important than a feature. You two must keep this confidential and work discreetly, but I need it done as quickly as possible," Saraphina instructed. "Understood, we'll get it done right away." Although she had assigned the task, Saraphina still felt uneasy. She used every advantage she had as a media professional, working tirelessly for 3 days and 3 nights. Staring at the documents and photos compiled by the 3 of them, Saraphina's brow furrowed. All the information clearly indicated that Ethan Lancaster was the only son of the Lancaster family. There were photos and records from his mother's pregnancy to his upbringing, showing that he had no siblings. Saraphina pinched the bridge of her nose and gazed out at the night sky, her thoughts drifting back over a decade. She and Ethan Lancaster had known each other since middle school. They were deskmates. How could she not be familiar with his family situation? If that was the case, then the living, breathing Ethan Lancaster she had seen was most likely an imposter. The thought startled Saraphina. Suddenly, the bedroom door was pushed open. Saraphina's heart tightened and she spun around. Reeking of alcohol, a flushed Ethan Lancaster staggered over, grabbed her by the wrist, and threw her onto the nearby bed. "You, how did you get in?" Saraphina asked, forcing herself to remain calm. Ethan Lancaster loosened his tie, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips. "I set all your passwords. You think I'd forget them?" With a wicked grin, the man leaned over and pressed down on her. Saraphina was completely stunned. She had changed the password after his last visit, but he still knew it. If he wasn't Ethan Lancaster, how could he know the passwords she commonly used? And how did he know that he was the one who had set all her passwords in the first place? Chapter 4. He isn't Ethan Lancaster, but her strength was no match for Ethan Lancaster's. Even though he was drunk, his hands were still powerful. He impatiently pinned her hands above her head. "Playing hard to get, don't you have any other tricks?" The smell of alcohol from his breath washed over her face, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Saraphina knew she couldn't escape, so she just stared at him. "Ethan, you told me we would wait until we were married. Why are you doing this to me now? Married?" The man laughed as if he had heard the world's greatest joke. "You've got quite the appetite." Looking at the unfamiliar coldness and cruelty in the man's eyes, Saraphina became even more certain that he was not Ethan Lancaster. But she had no choice but to submit. Her journalistic instincts kicked in, and she resolved to test him one more time to find out if he was real or fake. With that thought, Saraphina stopped struggling and fell silent. Afterward, Ethan Lancaster got off of her and went straight into the bathroom. Saraphina quickly dressed and hurried to the kitchen. By the time Ethan Lancaster came out of the bathroom, she had placed a steaming bowl of noodles on the dining table. "Ethan, you've been drinking. Have some noodles to settle your stomach," she said with a gentle smile. The man frowned impatiently, but when his eyes inadvertently swept over the bowl of noodles, he seemed to freeze for a moment. It was just a simple bowl of noodles with a poached egg, 3 slices of tomato, and a few green vegetables. Years ago, that skinny deskmate who hated him the most used to make a similar lunch. Seeing how thin and frail she looked, he would always snatch her noodles and devour them, then give her his own lunch box filled with meat and fish. "I need to watch my figure. I'm taking your noodles." We're trading, every time, watching her eat his nutritious meal with a pouting but resigned expression, he felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Seeing the man lost in thought, Saraphina frowned in confusion and handed him the chopsticks. "Your favorite noodles. Go ahead, eat." Ethan Lancaster's gaze was still fixed on the bowl of noodles. Almost as if in a trance, he took the chopsticks, sat down, and began to eat. To him, the simple noodles tasted like a gourmet meal. He quickly finished every last drop of the soup and noodles. Saraphina clenched her fists and sat down across from him. "Now can you tell me who you really are?" Her voice seemed to pull the man out of his reverie. He smiled faintly, picked up a napkin, and elegantly wiped his mouth while glancing at her. "What? You don't recognize your dearest man?" Saraphina narrowed her eyes and said with certainty, "You're not Ethan Lancaster." The man showed no surprise, raising an eyebrow at her with an amused look. "Are you sure? Ethan never eats cilantro or tomatoes, but you just finished the tomato and cilantro noodles I made for you." After a pause, Saraphina continued, "Ethan is brain dead." It's impossible for him to recover. I've also investigated him. He has no siblings. So, who are you? Why do you look exactly like him? What's your purpose in impersonating Ethan? Hearing this, the man slowly stood up and, to her surprise, began to applaud. Very good, you truly are the city's most renowned magazine editor. With that, the smile vanished from his face. He reached out, grabbed her by the neck, and said through clenched teeth, "Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm here to take your life." Chapter 5. The butterfly tattoo caught off guard. Saraphina had no strength to fight back as his hand closed around her neck. Staring into the man's rage-filled eyes, she clawed at his wrist, struggling to get a breath of air. "If you're not Ethan Lancaster, we have no history. Why do you want to kill me?" she managed to ask, her face turning red from the effort. His grip was terrifyingly strong. She could hear a cracking sound from her neck, as if her bones were breaking, and it became harder and harder to breathe. Even if she was going to die, she had to know why. "Why do I want to kill you?" Ethan Lancaster sneered, a bloodthirsty glint in his eyes. "Because you killed the man who loved you most, Ethan Lancaster. I'm here to avenge him." Saraphina froze, her eyes wide with shock. "I didn't cough." Saraphina coughed violently. Seizing the moment his grip loosened slightly, she pushed him away and stumbled back. Gasping for air, she asked, "Why do you look exactly like Ethan? What's your purpose in impersonating him?" The man's lips curled into a cold, charming smile as he advanced on her. "Because I am the other him. Of course I have to look exactly like him. Impossible. I've checked thoroughly. Ethan has no siblings, and there's no one in the world who could look exactly like him," she argued, backing away with each step he took. She had to find out what had happened to Ethan. Ethan Lancaster sneered, then suddenly lunged forward, grabbing her by the shoulders. He flipped her over and pinned her to the sofa, leaning in to whisper in her ear, "You don't need to know that much. All you need to know is that you killed Ethan Lancaster, and you must pay the price." With that, he ripped her clothes off. The moment Ethan Lancaster saw the butterfly tattoo on Saraphina's lower back, he froze. His deep eyes were fixed on the lifelike, colorful butterfly, and a storm of complex emotions, surprise, anger, contemplation swirled within them before finally erupting into a blazing fury. "Why would you get a butterfly tattoo here, wench?" Ethan Lancaster roared through clenched teeth, his rage escalating to an uncontrollable level. As he assaulted her, Saraphina defiantly shouted, "I didn't kill Ethan. If you're his other self, you should know that he was the person I loved most. How could I kill him? Seeing him lying in the hospital, I wished I could die in his place. I didn't kill him. You want to die? Not that easy. I'll make you wish you were dead." Staring at the familiar face now twisted with a cold, cruel expression, Saraphina was torn. She hadn't harmed Ethan. Before the accident, he had suddenly and inexplicably broken up with her. He had been in a bad mood, driving drunk, which led to the crash. To this day, she still didn't understand why he would break up with her out of the blue. She wanted to know what happened more than anyone. After he was finished with her, Ethan Lancaster slowly and methodically straightened his clothes. "From now on, you're not to leave this place. I've already resigned from your job for you. No one in Heicheng will dare to hire you again." "What?" A knot of dread tightened in Saraphina's chest. She reached out and grabbed his arm. "Don't." She had worked countless sleepless nights and fought tooth and nail to get to her current position. What right did he have to make her quit? Ethan Lancaster shoved her away forcefully. "It's not up to you." With a final, cold glare, he slammed the door and left. Chapter 6. Marry me. The next day, when Saraphina went to the magazine office, she was, as expected, informed that she had been fired. Although her colleagues were reluctant to see her go, no one dared to defy Ethan Lancaster. Whatever he decreed, no one in Heicheng would dare to say no. The two subordinates who had helped her investigate Ethan asked guiltily, "Was there a problem with the information we found? Did we anger him, and that's why you lost your job?" Saraphina shook her head with a bitter smile. "It's fine. I have more important things to do." After leaving the magazine, Saraphina bought a ticket for a flight to Washington the next day. After much consideration, she still found the sudden appearance of this Ethan Lancaster to be very strange. She had to go back to the hospital in Washington herself to find out if Ethan had been taken off life support or if he had miraculously recovered. One thing she was certain of was that the current Ethan Lancaster was not the real one. but he somehow knew so many things that only Ethan would know. Many of those things were secrets known only to her and the real Ethan. Even for a stand-in, to have plastic surgery to look identical without any flaws, and to know all his little secrets, 3 months was probably not enough time. Regardless, the only way to find out the truth was to go to the hospital where he had last stayed. While going through security at the airport, Saraphina saw news of Ethan Lancaster and Fiona Ellsworth's upcoming wedding plastered on all the advertising screens. 6 months ago, he had slipped a diamond ring onto her finger and said, "Wanwan, marry me. Let me love you legally from now on." In the blink of an eye, everything had changed. A sharp pain shot through Saraphina's heart, as if it were being squeezed by a handful of crushed ice cold and agonizing. "Ethan, this person isn't you, right?" After landing at Doul's International Airport in Washington, Saraphina took a taxi straight to the hospital. Ethan Lancaster's attending physician was a tall, slender, and refined local man. He was surprised to see her. "Oh, the beautiful lady from China, you're back," Saraphina nodded politely and said in fluent English, "I'm sorry to bother you. I came to inquire about my friend Ethan Lancaster's condition when he was being treated here. I was wondering if it would be convenient for you to share some information." At the mention of Ethan Lancaster, the man smiled and shrugged. "He's your friend, of course you can see him. Come, follow me." He then made a gentlemanly please gesture. Saraphina was stunned. "See him, he's still here." 3 months ago, the hospital was about to remove his breathing tube, wasn't it? The doctor nodded. His family wasn't willing to give up on him, so he's still here. However, apart from a faint breath, he's just sleeping all the time. Saraphina's heart was in turmoil. She didn't know if she was becoming clearer or more confused. She quickened her pace to follow the doctor. After changing into a sterile gown, she was led to the intensive care unit. At the door, she took a deep breath before daring to look through the slowly opening door. On the hospital bed, the man with the respirator was sleeping peacefully. A single glance was enough to make Saraphina's eyes well up with tears. Who else could it be but Ethan? He looked exactly the same as when she had left 3 months ago. Seeing Saraphina enter, the doctor gently closed the door. Saraphina had no idea how she managed to walk toward him. Each step felt like walking on knives. Her steps grew heavier, her vision blurred, and the pain in her heart intensified. Chapter 7. He's not dead. Standing by Ethan Lancaster's bedside, gazing at his familiar handsome face, the tears she had been holding back finally streamed down her cheeks. "Ethan, Ethan, I'm here to see you." She had thought he was no longer in this world, never imagining she would see him again in her lifetime, even though he might never open his eyes to look at her again. Saraphina sat down beside Ethan, her trembling hands taking his. She pressed her face against them, tears flowing uncontrollably. Seeing the man she loved lying there like a living corpse, her heart felt as if it were being ground by gears, the pain making it hard to breathe. If she could, she would willingly take his place in that dark world and endure the unending torment. At that thought, Saraphina suddenly opened her eyes, wiped away her tears, and looked closely at the motionless man. The real Ethan was still here. He had been here all along, which meant the Ethan Lancaster back home was a complete imposter. Thinking about what the fake Ethan had done to her recently, Saraphina couldn't help but shudder. She composed herself, took out her phone, and pointed the camera at the man on the bed. "Ethan, I'm sorry. A man who looks exactly like you has returned to the Lancaster group in your place. I don't know if he was arranged by your family, but I have to make him believe that I'm not the one who caused this to you." Just as Saraphina was about to press the record button, the man in the camera, who had been motionless, suddenly opened his eyes. He gave her a wicked smile and ripped the respirator off his face. "Ah," Saraphina yelped in shock. The phone slipped from her hand, and she nearly collapsed to the floor. Ethan Lancaster reached out, grabbed her wrist in time, and pulled her forcefully onto the hospital bed. In one swift movement, he flipped over and pinned her beneath him. "Ethan, you're awake?" Overcoming her immense shock, Saraphina's face lit up with joy at the sight of the man who had suddenly awakened. But Ethan Lancaster's lips curled into a cold smile. He grabbed her face and said through clenched teeth, "Are you scared to see me awake? The man's words were like a bucket of ice water poured over her head, chilling her from head to toe, from her heart to her very soul. You're not Ethan, you're the imposter, you." Before Saraphina could finish her shocked words, Ethan Lancaster dragged her off the bed and, gripping her shoulder, began to pull her out of the room. "What are you doing? Let go of me." A chill ran down Saraphina's spine. Her instincts screamed at her that this man was a devil. She couldn't let him take her. But the more she struggled, the tighter his grip became, crushing her shoulder until she broke out in a cold sweat from the pain. "Let go of you. Do you think you can run away if I let you go?" The man sneered, his sinister eyes fixed on her. "Or did you think I wasn't me, and came here to pull my oxygen plug and finish me off for good? You're insane." Saraphina found this lunatic completely unreasonable. She was still in a complete daze. The doctor had clearly said that Ethan had been in a coma here all this time. How could he suddenly turn into this monster? Could it be that he really was Ethan, but his personality had drastically changed after waking up? "Since you won't admit it, I'll make you understand. Come with me." Ethan Lancaster cut off Saraphina's thoughts, his grip tightening on her wrist as he dragged her out. Chapter 8. He has a split personality. Saraphina was taken back to the country by Ethan Lancaster that very night. For days and nights, she hadn't slept well and was utterly exhausted. When Ethan Lancaster brought her back to his apartment and threw a thick journal in front of her, she was instantly wide awake. She had bought that journal for him. She knew it was Ethan Lancaster's. This is Ethan Lancaster's journal. It clearly documents how you played with his feelings. "Saraphina, open your eyes and take a good look." Ethan Lancaster pressed her head down, forcing her face against the journal. Stunned, Saraphina looked up at him after he let go. "So, you're really not Ethan Lancaster? Tell me, is Ethan still alive?" "Ha, of course he's dead, otherwise, why would I be here to avenge him?" the man said, leaning back into the sofa and casually lighting a cigarette. In the flickering light, Saraphina finally believed it. This man was not Ethan Lancaster. Ethan had asthma, he never smoked. Saraphina opened the journal. As the familiar handwriting appeared before her, a sharp pain pierced her heart, and she frowned. It was indeed Ethan's handwriting, his journal. To be precise, it wasn't a daily journal, as entries were sporadic, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, and each one was just a few short sentences. As she flipped through the pages, Saraphina's frown deepened. What Ethan wrote in the journal was very unstable. Sometimes it was a deep declaration of his love for her and their future together. But other times, he wrote strange things, saying she had approached him with ulterior motives, that she didn't love him, only his status. In the last few entries, his emotions seemed to be in turmoil, repeatedly saying that Saraphina had deceived him and that he was a fool. Saraphina didn't want to believe that Ethan Lancaster had written this, but the familiar handwriting was undeniably his, and the journal was his as well. "You recognize Ethan Lancaster's handwriting, don't you?" the man asked coldly, extinguishing his fifth cigarette and turning to look at her. Saraphina closed the journal and shook her head firmly. Although it's Ethan's journal and his handwriting, much of what he wrote here simply isn't true. After saying this, Saraphina subconsciously glanced at the man beside her. A memory of a patient with schizophrenia she had interviewed a year ago suddenly came to mind. The patient was a successful man in his 30s, but he suffered from a severe split personality. He would be gentle and loving to his wife one moment, then violently abusive the next, and when he was lucid, he had no memory of his violent self. Could it be that Ethan also had a split personality? If so, the man before her might actually be Ethan himself, and his current behavior, like his journal entries, was a manifestation of his split personality. Ethan Lancaster leaned in, grabbing her chin and staring at her with narrowed, cold eyes. Still trying to deny it. If you hadn't broken up with him, would he have crashed his car while driving drunk? Startled by his fierce gaze, Saraphina closed her eyes and said in a low voice, "Ethan was the one who broke up with me, not the other way around. What he wrote in his journal is the complete opposite of what happened." She felt like she was on the verge of a breakdown. The man in front of her was clearly Ethan, but at the same time, he wasn't. This journal was clearly written by Ethan, yet much of its content was false. What on earth had happened to Ethan before his accident? Still arguing, the man said through clenched teeth, pushing her onto the sofa. "From today on, if you dare to take one step out of this villa, I'll send you to join Ethan Lancaster in heaven." Chapter 9. Hypnotize him. Saraphina was imprisoned by Ethan Lancaster. Unlike her previous resistance, this time she didn't fight back, didn't struggle, and didn't even say a word of protest. This was where Ethan Lancaster usually lived. With her sharp, journalistic instincts, she was determined to find some clues here, to figure out who the real Ethan Lancaster was. And who was it that had framed her for harming Ethan? After Ethan Lancaster left, Saraphina called Dr. Winston Kane. After listening to her detailed description, Dr. Kane said uncertainly, "From what you've described, if we can be sure that Ethan Lancaster has no siblings and no one who could look exactly like him, then there's only one possibility. He has a split personality." Saraphina's eyes widened. This was exactly what she had suspected. "Then, how can we be sure?" she asked in a low voice. Dr. Kane thought for a moment and suggested, "Hypnotize him and find out the truth." "He'll never agree to be hypnotized," Saraphina frowned. "That's simple, I'll teach you how to do it." "Okay, I'll have some sedatives sent to you by courier. After he takes them, he'll be very cooperative during the hypnosis." "Thank you." After being confined in the villa for a full week, Ethan Lancaster finally returned one night. Compared to her previous resistance and disgust, Saraphina was much more compliant. She actively wrapped her arms around his neck and welcomed him. She was becoming more and more convinced that he was her Ethan Lancaster. Even though he had changed, even though he was sick, he was still the man she loved. As long as he was by her side, as long as he was alive, that was all that mattered. Just as I thought. A total wench, an insatiable woman. After he was satisfied, Ethan Lancaster slapped the butterfly tattoo on her lower back and went to the bathroom. Saraphina took the medicine she had prepared and mixed it into a glass of milk. She brought it to him by the bathtub and quietly left. For the past week, she had done nothing but secretly learn hypnosis remotely from Dr. Kane. With the medicine he had sent, she believed she would soon uncover the truth. After bringing the drugged milk to the bathroom, Saraphina waited nervously by the door. Half an hour later, Ethan Lancaster, wearing a bathrobe, came out and gave her a cold look. "What? Not leaving? Want another round?" Saraphina walked out without a word. Just as she was about to open the door, a loud thud came from behind her. She froze and spun around to see Ethan Lancaster crumpled on the floor. His hands twitched, his head lolled to the side, and he closed his eyes, motionless. "Ethan," Saraphina's heart tightened, and she rushed over to help him. What kind of medicine was this? How could a simple sedative take effect so quickly? With no time to think, Saraphina tried to pull him up, but she froze when she saw the bluish tint on his forehead and lips. This wasn't sleep? "Help someone, help!" Saraphina knew she couldn't delay and shouted for the servants downstairs. The bodyguards and servants rushed in and hastily carried Ethan Lancaster away to the hospital. Saraphina tried to follow, but Ethan's personal bodyguard stopped her. "Miss Vance, the master ordered that you are not to leave this place." With that, he got in the car and left. Alone in the villa, Saraphina paced back and forth in a panic. She looked at the empty glass that Ethan had drunk the milk from, and the more she thought about it, the more something felt wrong. She called Dr. Kane. "What are the effects of that medicine?" "It's just a standard sedative. It promotes sleep and helps him enter a hypnotic state quickly without any distractions." "Does it cause the face to turn blue?" she asked urgently. "Of course not." Saraphina's phone slipped from her hand. Chapter 10. Arsenic poisoning after a restless night in the villa. Saraphina, who had been sitting on the sofa all night, shot to her feet as the door was thrown open and a group of people stormed in. Fiona Ellsworth, leading 5 or 6 uniformed police officers, walked in. Upon seeing her, Fiona's face contorted with rage. She strode over and slapped Saraphina across the face. The sharp crack of the slap echoed eerily in the silent living room. Saraphina's head snapped to the side. Before she could speak, Fiona raised her hand to strike again. This time, Saraphina caught her wrist. "What are you doing?" Fiona's eyes were filled with a vicious hatred. Despite her makeup, her face looked hideous. She sneered, "Saraphina, you've got some nerve. How dare you poison Ethan? You weren't satisfied that you didn't kill him last time, were you?" "Poison?" Saraphina frowned and released her hand. "When did I poison Ethan?" Still denying it, luckily, Ethan was taken to the hospital in time and had his stomach pumped. Otherwise, no one would believe that the person who poisoned him was you. "You seemingly innocent wench," the more Fiona spoke. The angrier she became. her expression filled with a disgust so intense she looked as if she wanted to tear Saraphina to pieces. Saraphina's brow furrowed deeply. "You're saying Ethan was poisoned? I need to see him." As she tried to leave, she was politely stopped by the police. "Miss Vance, we suspect you poisoned Mr. Ethan Lancaster's milk. Please come with us to assist in the investigation." After showing her an arrest warrant, the officer produced a search warrant. "Now, please cooperate with us as we search your room." Saraphina's mind went completely blank. How could this be? It was just a sedative. How could it be poison? "No, it's not poison, just a sedative," Saraphina muttered, unable to believe that Dr. Kane would set her up. Slap! Unexpectedly, Fiona slapped her again. "It really was you wench officers. She's the murderer, take her away," Fiona shrieked in a rage. "I didn't do it, it wasn't poison," Saraphina snapped back to her senses, shouting in protest. "The police will find out the truth, you can wait for your prison sentence, HMPH. Fiona crossed her arms, a malicious smirk on her face. The police quickly found the box of sedatives that Dr. Kane had mailed to Saraphina in her room and took her away. After 3 dark days in a holding cell, the police presented her with a lab report. "The sedative you gave Mr. Lancaster contained arsenic trioxide, commonly known as arsenic. Long-term use can lead to chronic poisoning and death. Fortunately, Mr. Lancaster is allergic to metallic elements, so he had a reaction after taking just 1 pill." Saraphina stared at the report in disbelief, speechless. "Dr. Kane, Miss Vance, where did you get this medicine?" the police officer asked. "Ethan Lancaster was tormenting me at home every day. I wanted to hypnotize him, so I got the medicine from a doctor friend of mine." She gave up Dr. Kane's name because she believed he wouldn't be foolish enough to poison the medicine. First, he had no motive to kill Ethan Lancaster. Second, he was a brilliant researcher and wouldn't use such a crude method to harm someone. And third, Dr. Kane would never drag her into this. "Mr. Lancaster was tormenting you." The officer chuckled as if he had heard a joke. "Why?" Saraphina gritted her teeth. "Because he's not the real Ethan Lancaster. The real Ethan Lancaster died in a car accident 6 months ago. This one is a fake." She had to tell them everything if she wanted any chance of finding out the truth. "All right, we've arranged a defense lawyer for you. The trial will be in 2 weeks. Please be prepared," the officer said matter-of-factly before leaving. Saraphina slumped down, defeated. Who was framing her? Time and time again, they were pushing her toward a dead end. Chapter 11. Imprisoned for assault at the Haicheng First People's Court. More than 2 weeks later, Saraphina finally saw Ethan Lancaster in the courtroom. He still looked as noble and aloof as ever, seemingly unharmed. Saraphina felt an inexplicable sense of relief, but when she met his cold, disdainful gaze, she quickly looked away. Today, in this courtroom, she had to tell them everything to clear her and Dr. Kane's names. The trial began. When Saraphina claimed that the Ethan Lancaster before them was not the real one, the opposing lawyer brought in a forensic expert to collect DNA samples from Ethan and his parents on the spot. When the trial resumed a day later, the results were in. Ethan Lancaster was indeed the biological son of his parents. Although Dr. Kane brought in other samples from the same batch of sedatives he had mailed to Saraphina, there was still no evidence to clear them of the charge of poisoning Ethan Lancaster. With both witness testimony and physical evidence, Saraphina and Dr. Kane were found guilty of intentional assault and sentenced to 10 years in prison, effective immediately. "This medicine isn't mine," Dr. Kane declared in court, refusing to accept the verdict. He stood firm and said, "Although the batch numbers are the same, this medicine has definitely been tampered with." "Then we'll have to ask Miss Vance about that," the opposing lawyer said pointedly. Throughout the entire process, Saraphina was in a daze. When she learned that Ethan Lancaster was indeed the Ethan Lancaster, she completely lost her senses. How could it be? How could he be her Ethan? How? On Saraphina's first day in prison, Fiona Ellsworth came to visit. Looking at the thin, frail woman in a prison uniform, Fiona's beautiful red lips curved into a smile. "Saraphina, now you know the consequences of messing with me," Saraphina sneered. "I never messed with you. You were only ever fighting with yourself." Fiona was taken aback for a moment, then gritted her teeth viciously. I told you a long time ago that you're not worthy of being with Ethan. The person who will spend a lifetime with him can only be me. Saraphina nodded mockingly. Yes, it's you, Fiona. I just want to know who made Ethan this way. Did you do something to him? Fiona raised an eyebrow. You're being ridiculous. Ethan was just blind to have been with you before. After the car accident, his mind cleared. And of course he chose me. It's a shame you won't be able to attend our wedding. Fiona left with a triumphant smile. But Saraphina was even more confused. It seemed that Fiona hadn't noticed any difference between the current Ethan Lancaster and the old one. In her prison cell, just as Saraphina was falling asleep, she felt the light dim as if it were being blocked by shadows. She opened her eyes in surprise to see 3 burly inmates staring at her with menacing expressions. You, she had just spoken when a dirty towel was shoved into her mouth. The lights in the room were extinguished, and fists rained down on her from all directions. One of the women muttered as she hit her, "Sorry, sis. Someone paid us to rough you up a bit. We're just doing our job, so don't blame us." Saraphina struggled and fought back with all her might, but it was useless. The women were strong. They wrapped her in a blanket, threw her on the floor, and kicked her relentlessly. Soon, Saraphina lost the strength to fight and lay motionless on the ground. Chapter 12. An identical woman. Only when the thick smell of blood filled the room did the fists and feet finally stop. She can't take a punch. She's bleeding already. Wait, why does it look like the blood is coming from down there? Oh my God, don't tell me she was pregnant and we just caused a miscarriage. At the Lancaster villa, an assistant handed a black leather journal to the man smoking by the window. Sir, what should I do with this journal? Ethan Lancaster glanced at it. Lock it up. The assistant nodded, then asked with confusion, Sir, why do you think Miss Ellsworth wanted to secretly throw this journal away? The man's deep eyes narrowed as he extinguished the cigarette with his fingers. She just wanted me to see what was inside. That day, Fiona had secretly taken the journal and arranged for someone to burn it. What she didn't know was that the person she had arranged was one of his men. But if it weren't for her, he would never have known about this journal or its contents. And he would never have known that Saraphina was, indirectly, the one who had caused his death. But now, thinking of the defiant look in that woman's eyes in the courtroom, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. His phone suddenly rang, interrupting his thoughts. The assistant answered the call and quickly reported, Miss Vance was beaten in prison, she had a miscarriage and was taken to the People's Hospital. Hearing this, the man's eyes narrowed, and he strode out of the room. Damn woman, when did she get pregnant with his child? How dare she hide it from him when Ethan Lancaster arrived at the hospital? He was told that Saraphina had already had surgery and was in her room. He rushed to the room and threw the door open. The frail woman on the bed was receiving an IV drip. The furious man grabbed her by the collar and hauled her up. With red, blazing eyes, Ethan Lancaster stared at her and gritted his teeth. Saraphina, you've got some nerve. How dare you hide my child from me? Now you owe me another life. How are you going to repay me? I'm sorry, Mr. Lancaster. The woman was terrified. As she began to speak, her body trembling, Ethan Lancaster froze. You're not Saraphina, he said, staring at the woman in disbelief as he instantly let go of her. She wasn't Saraphina, although she looked exactly like Saraphina. But her eyes were different, her voice was different, and the way she spoke to him was different. The woman glanced at him in fear, then quickly lowered her head, still trembling. Ethan Lancaster flipped her over and lifted her hospital gown. Ah, the woman shrieked, but Ethan saw her bare lower back. There was no butterfly tattoo. She really wasn't Saraphina. Where is Saraphina? Where is she? Ethan Lancaster roared, his fury terrifying the woman into a trembling mess. I really don't know. It was Julian Ellsworth who asked me to impersonate Saraphina. I really don't know anything. Julian Ellsworth? Fiona's good-for-nothing brother who had always coveted Saraphina. Where did he take Saraphina? Ethan Lancaster felt a fire of rage burning within him. The thing he hated most was being deceived. I really don't know. They left on a private jet. The woman stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. Ethan Lancaster didn't care why a woman who looked exactly like Saraphina had suddenly appeared. He turned and stormed out of the room. Chapter 13. Blocking his path, New York, USA. The overnight flight left Saraphina exhausted. She arrived at the villa arranged by Julian Ellsworth and immediately collapsed onto the bed. Saraphina, don't think too much. I've taken care of everything. Just rest and get well, Julian said caringly, placing a glass of hot water by her side. He had been her boss and had pursued her for a long time, but she had remained indifferent. Now, he finally had the chance to take care of her. Saraphina's pale lips parted slightly. Mr. Ellsworth, you said you would tell me everything about Ethan. What on earth happened to him? Julian sighed. The car accident damaged his brain. He's completely changed. The Ethan Lancaster we see is the real Ethan Lancaster. Saraphina frowned in doubt. Really? Just as she finished speaking, the bedroom door was kicked open with a loud bang, and a familiar figure strode in against the light. The sinister-looking Ethan Lancaster and his men barged in, a cold smile on his face. Of course not, the real Ethan Lancaster is brain dead. I'm not Ethan Lancaster. Saraphina and Julian were both stunned. Julian subconsciously stood up and shielded Saraphina. Ethan Lancaster, what do you want? With a single glance from Ethan Lancaster, his subordinates immediately restrained Julian. The man walked step by step to Saraphina's side, sat on the edge of her bed, and grabbed her chin. Saraphina, you've got some nerve. How dare you run away after killing my child? At the mention of the child, a flicker of pain crossed Saraphina's clear eyes. She looked at him defiantly. You devil, I would rather die than have your child. You're asking for it. Enraged, Ethan Lancaster's grip tightened. Saraphina felt as if she were about to suffocate, but she didn't struggle or beg for mercy. Ethan is gone, the child is gone, there's no point in me living anymore. If you have the guts, kill me. Seeing this, Julian's eyes instantly turned red. He pushed aside the men holding him, spun around, and quickly pulled a gun from a drawer. Everyone back off. Faced with the dark muzzle of the gun, everyone hesitated and cleared a path for him. Julian aimed the gun at Ethan Lancaster and sneered, shouting, Ethan Lancaster, Saraphina is in this state because of you. If you have any humanity left, let her go. You already have Fiona. Why do you have to torment a helpless woman like Saraphina? Ethan Lancaster's lips curled. He released Saraphina, turned to glance at the gun in Julian's hand, and laughed recklessly. Julian Ellsworth, what right do you have to interfere? The women I've slept with, even if I were to give them to beggars, it wouldn't be your turn. Enraged, Julian's chest heaved violently, his hands trembling as he held the gun. You shameless scoundrel, I'm going to kill you. With that, he closed his eyes and squeezed the trigger. Saraphina watched in horror as the out-of-control Julian pulled the trigger. Her eyes widened, and without a moment's hesitation, she pushed Ethan Lancaster aside and threw herself in front of him. Bang! A dull gunshot echoed through the room. The bullet flew from the chamber and into her body, a spray of blood and flesh instantly erupting into the air. Saraphina had braced herself for pain, but she had never imagined it would hurt this much. The moment the bullet hit, it felt as if her left shoulder had been chopped off. The pain was excruciating, and it felt as if a giant hand was tearing at her flesh, the agony intensifying with each passing moment. A broken cry escaped her lips. Saraphina clutched her left shoulder and collapsed onto the floor, her face ashen. As her body moved, blood gushed from the wound. The fresh blood instantly stained Saraphina's white shirt, a glaring, blinding red. Her eyes slowly closed, her hand falling limp at her side. Chapter 14. Her dying wish, Saraphina? Ethan Lancaster had been prepared for the bullet. When the gunshot rang out and he felt no pain, he stood frozen for a full 3 seconds before coming to his senses. He looked down at the woman who had collapsed on the floor, her upper body covered in blood. His body shook, his dark eyes filled with shock and disbelief. Saraphina had actually taken a bullet for him. Any other woman maybe, but Saraphina, pain, so much pain. Saraphina rested her head against the wall, her breath as faint as a thread as she responded to Ethan Lancaster. Do you have any idea what you're doing? After the initial shock, a coldness swept over Ethan Lancaster's eyes. What game was this woman playing now? A self-pity trick. I know, of course I know. A tragic yet resolute smile touched Saraphina's lips. I was the one who killed you back then. Now I've taken a bullet for you. I suppose this makes us even, doesn't it? They say the dead should be respected. Before I die, can you answer one question for me? I just want to know your real identity. Tell me, who are you? It was a long speech, and Saraphina had to muster all her strength to finish it. Before she died, she just wanted to know, Was he or was he not Ethan Lancaster? Saraphina, you. Ethan Lancaster knelt on one knee, his hands trembling as he instinctively gathered the woman who seemed on the verge of death into his arms. He was too shocked to speak. Please tell me, who are you? Saraphina wasn't afraid of death, only of dying without knowing who this man was. If she knew, she could die in peace. Ethan Lancaster's gaze was locked on Saraphina's shoulder. Seeing the crimson flower blooming there, his mind involuntarily flashed back to that girl. She had got her period and stained her pants. All the other students had left the classroom, but she remained, too embarrassed to leave, afraid that if she stood up, everyone would see the stain on the back of her skirt. When he gave her his jacket, he had inadvertently glimpsed the spot of blood on her skirt. That red and the red before him now began to overlap. Ethan Lancaster was momentarily lost in a daze, as if he had been transported back to that moment. In his daze, he forgot to answer her question. The room fell silent. Julian Ellsworth finally snapped out of his shock. Saraphina, she had actually taken a bullet for Ethan Lancaster. Seeing Saraphina lying in a pool of blood, her lips pale, looking as if she could die at any moment, the realization that he was the one who had killed her sent a shiver through him. His hands trembled, and the black pistol clattered to the floor. No, he hadn't killed her, but in the next second, Ethan Lancaster's men reacted, swarming in to restrain the man who had tried to kill their master. Let go of me, I didn't kill her. Julian struggled desperately, but he was no match for the burly men who easily subdued him. Sir, what should we do with him? His subordinate's voice brought Ethan Lancaster back to his senses. A frosty layer covered his face, but his eyes, as he looked at the woman in his arms, were filled with anxiety and pain. His voice was hoarse with anger. Saraphina, you're damn crazy. The woman had lost too much blood. She managed a weak smile, then her eyes closed, and all signs of life seemed to vanish. Chapter 15. Beyond saving, Ethan Lancaster's face turned ashen as he held the unconscious woman in his arms. His mind went blank. Feeling her life slipping away, only one thought remained: the hospital. Go to the hospital. Saraphina couldn't die, she had to live. He wouldn't allow her to die because of him, sir. Before his subordinates could get a word out, they saw their master, holding the blood-soaked Miss Vance, dash out of the room like a madman. He placed Saraphina in the passenger seat of the sports car, buckled her in, and floored the accelerator. He sped all the way, ignoring countless speed limits and the police cars chasing him. As the hospital came into view, he pushed the pedal down even harder. Saraphina, I forbid you to die, do you hear me? Arriving at the hospital, he held her in his arms, feeling her breath grow faint. His arms trembled. The thought that she might die filled him with a strange panic. Saraphina, he roared, his voice thick with suppressed rage, I command you not to die, do you hear me? Don't you want to know who I am? If you live, I'll tell you who I am. I won't let you die, do you hear me? He raced into the hospital, holding her. The movement caused the wound to bleed more profusely, the blood gushing out. Watching the blood pour from Saraphina's frail body, staining his clothes, a feeling of desolation and grief welled up from the depths of his heart. Ethan Lancaster suddenly felt what he had felt years ago when he learned that the little girl named Lingchi had been raped and murdered. Regret, panic, fear, a strange mix of emotions flooded his mind. Would Saraphina be the next Lingchi? No, absolutely not. Saraphina would live holding the dying woman. Ethan Lancaster sprinted into the hospital at top speed. Inside the elevator, just the two of them, as it ascended, the pain seemed to wake her. Saraphina's eyelashes fluttered, then her eyes opened a crack. She looked at Ethan Lancaster, a bitter smile on her lips. Ethan Lancaster? Yes. Ethan Lancaster's face was devoid of color. Seeing Saraphina awake, he was overjoyed, but his happiness was short-lived. Her next words plunged him into hell. I'm so tired. Loving you takes so much energy. I've used up a lifetime of strength loving you. I don't want to guess anymore, and I don't have the energy to hear who you are. If you want to tell me, you can come to my grave and tell me there. Whether out of revenge or something else, a hint of a smile touched her voice as she spoke the last few words. As the final word left her lips, Saraphina's eyelids, heavy as lead, closed, and she didn't respond no matter how much Ethan Lancaster called her name. The elevator doors opened. The nurses waiting outside saw a blood-soaked man from the east run out like a madman, straight for the emergency room. Doctor, get out here, medical staff rushed out. I want you to save her, Ethan Lancaster roared in English, like an enraged lion, his fury terrifying the entire room of doctors. Seeing Ethan Lancaster pull out a gun, the doctors nearly wet themselves, on the verge of kneeling and begging. Yes, sir, please don't worry, we will do everything we can to save this young lady. Chapter 16. Not my blood, how is Saraphina? Miss Vance is still in emergency surgery. The doctors say the chances of her survival are very low. She's in critical condition, in other words, she has one foot in the grave right now. Whether she can be saved depends on her own will to live. So, if Saraphina wanted to live, she might live. Julian Ellsworth rose irritably and paced the room. Damn it, he shouldn't have pulled the trigger. He hadn't killed Ethan Lancaster, but he had hurt his Saraphina. The image of Saraphina lying in a pool of blood flashed through his mind, causing a sharp pain in his head. His Saraphina, was she really gone? A wave of panic washed over him. Julian frowned. No, he had to go see Saraphina. If something happened to her, who would be responsible? At the hospital. Which operating room is Saraphina in? You mean the Miss Vance who lost a lot of blood, in the emergency room on the 3rd floor. Julian followed the nurse's directions. Before he even reached the emergency room, he saw Ethan Lancaster waiting outside. Ethan Lancaster hadn't slept all night. His chin was covered in stubble and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked exhausted. Ethan Lancaster, where is Saraphina? Hearing his voice, Ethan Lancaster stiffened. He slowly turned his head, and when he saw Julian, his eyes filled with rage. Julian Ellsworth, you still have the nerve to ask about Saraphina? Saraphina is my subordinate. I injured her by mistake. How is she? Julian asked, his eyes fixed on the emergency room door. Ethan Lancaster shot up from his chair and strode toward Julian, grabbing him by the collar. You bastard, Ethan Lancaster, stop it, are you crazy? Before Julian could react, Ethan slammed him against the wall. A sharp pain shot through his back, and Julian cried out, Ugh, I'm crazy. I think you're the one who's crazy. You claim to like Saraphina, yet you could still bring yourself to shoot her if anything happens to Saraphina. I'll kill you to avenge her. Ethan Lancaster said through clenched teeth. He balled his fist and, without giving Julian a chance to speak, swung at his face. Bang! Stop it, damn it! Taken by surprise, the usually gentle Julian swore and threw a punch back. Ethan Lancaster, you blame me. In the end, it's all because you treated Saraphina badly. If you had been better to her, would I have brought her to the US? I'm telling you, Ethan Lancaster, what happened to Saraphina today is your fault too. Ethan Lancaster laughed instead of getting angry. He licked the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes dark and sinister. Julian Ellsworth, who do you think you are? What happens between me and Saraphina is none of your business. Even if I were to kill her, it would have nothing to do with you. Julian's face darkened. Yes, this was between Ethan Lancaster and Saraphina, and he had no right to interfere. But don't forget, Ethan Lancaster, you're engaged to my sister, yet you're involved with another woman. For the sake of my sister's happiness, I have every right to intervene, don't I? Ethan Lancaster stared at him coldly, about to speak, when an exasperated voice cut in. Enough, both of you, stop fighting. They turned to see Julian's sister. Julian was stunned. Fiona, what are you doing here? What? You're allowed to run off to the hospital, but I'm not allowed to follow you. Fiona glared at Julian, then looked at Ethan. Seeing him covered in blood, she gasped, Ethan, what happened? Are you hurt? She rushed to his side to check on him. Ethan pushed her hand away. It's not my blood. Chapter 17, a rare blood type, then whose is it? After asking, Fiona saw the closed doors of the emergency room and seemed to understand. She pursed her lips, fell silent for a moment, then looked at Julian. Brother, don't be like this. Ethan and Saraphina are not in that kind of relationship. They're just friends. Miss Vance is injured and has lost so much blood. Her life is in danger. It's not just Ethan. Even a stranger would be worried, let alone a friend. Isn't it normal to be concerned? Just friends? Ha, Julian scoffed as if he had heard a joke. My dear silly sister, don't you know there's no such thing as just friends between a man and a woman? Ethan Lancaster and Saraphina have already betrayed you. How can you still be so foolishly deceived by this man? Brother, don't drag Miss Vance into your issues with Ethan. Fiona tried to defend Ethan again. Ethan took Fiona's hand and pulled her behind him. He won't believe it, so there's no need to waste your breath. But Fiona hesitated, not wanting to see the man she loved be misunderstood by her family. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Soon, the police arrived. "Mr. Ethan Lancaster, you said on the phone that someone intentionally harmed you?" The officer asked upon arrival, glancing at Fiona and Julian. He doubted a woman would assault Ethan, but this man seemed too refined to be a suspect. Ethan remained expressionless as Fiona wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He glanced at Julian. "It was him. You can check the surveillance footage." "You're lying, Ethan Lancaster, you started it fine. Let's check the footage and see who threw the first punch. He verbally abused and harassed me first," Ethan retorted coolly. The police reviewed the surveillance footage and saw that Julian had indeed approached Ethan first. "You verbally abused the victim first. Please come with us to the station to give a statement." The police took Julian away. Despite his protests, he was still taken away. Before leaving, he shot a hateful glare at Ethan and spat. "You just wait." Just as Julian was taken away by the police, the emergency room doors opened. "Who is Miss Vance's family?" "I am. How is Saraphina?" Ethan pushed Fiona aside and rushed forward. "Miss Vance has a rare blood type, Rh negative. The patient has lost a lot of blood. We've removed the bullet, but it was very close to her heart. Due to the excessive blood loss, we're having trouble finding a match for her rare blood type. The patient is now in critical condition. The nurse meant that they needed to find a donor with Rh negative blood immediately. But people with this blood type are very rare. We might not even find 10 in the entire United States." "A rare blood type? Rh negative?" Fiona's eyes lit up. She stood up. "Nurse, I have that blood type. You can save Saraphina?" The gloom in Ethan's eyes vanished, replaced by a glimmer of hope. He turned to Fiona. "Of course I can," Fiona said without hesitation. Then, as if remembering something, she added, "I can save Saraphina, but can you not press charges against my brother? He didn't mean to do it, he was just worried. Please, you have to forgive him." "Fine. Any other conditions?" As long as Saraphina lived, he would agree to any of Fiona's demands. Remembering Julian's words, Fiona hesitated for a long time before saying, "Also, you can't have any contact with Saraphina in the future. Can you do that?" Chapter 18. Lingchi, there's no such thing as a platonic friendship between a man and a woman. She wasn't a child anymore, she knew that. She had to keep Ethan Lancaster away from Saraphina. "Fine, I agree, give her the blood." "Save her," Ethan Lancaster agreed readily. He seemed completely unconcerned, but the hand hanging by his side had clenched into a tight fist, his knuckles turning white. Fiona donated blood to Saraphina. 12 hours later, the emergency room doors opened again. The patient's heart rate has stabilized after the transfusion. She is now out of danger. Ethan Lancaster hadn't closed his eyes for a full 24 hours. Hearing the doctor's words, he closed his eyes heavily and collapsed into a chair. Phew, thank God Saraphina was safe. Saraphina was safe? Wait, why did he feel a sense of relief that Saraphina was out of danger? Annoyed, Ethan Lancaster slammed his fist against the wall. Damn it, what was he so relieved about? Shouldn't he be the happiest person if Saraphina died? Damn it, Miss Vance hasn't woken up yet, but her condition is slowly improving. After the life-saving transfusion yesterday, her vitals have stabilized. We believe she will wake up in the next couple of days. A nurse reported Saraphina's condition to Ethan Lancaster. The door to the hospital room creaked open. Fiona walked in with her handbag, glanced at the nurse, and waited for her to leave before approaching Ethan Lancaster. "The tickets are booked, Ethan." Ethan Lancaster replied coolly, his gaze fixed on the pale, frail figure on the bed. "The flight is tonight. Miss Vance might not wake up by then. Should we change the flight and go back after she wakes up?" Fiona had just donated blood and was still a bit weak, her voice faint. Whether it was intentional or not, her voice was so weak it sounded as if she could faint at any moment. Ethan Lancaster had been hesitant, wanting to wait for Saraphina to wake up before returning. But hearing Fiona's weak voice, he clenched his fist as if he had made up his mind. "No need. We'll go back tonight and leave the U.S." Fiona had only made the suggestion to appear less petty. She had regretted it the moment she said it, afraid that Ethan would agree. Hearing his refusal, she let out a sigh of relief, a smile blooming on her face. "Okay, let's go." Ethan Lancaster took one last deep look at the sleeping Saraphina, then put his arm around Fiona's waist and led her out of the room. 7 o'clock in the evening, John F. Kennedy International Airport. The private jet is ready. Sir, miss, please follow me to board. The cabin door closed. Knowing that Ethan Lancaster hadn't rested for over 20 hours, Fiona asked the flight attendant for a glass of hot milk, into which she added half a sleeping pill. She wanted him to get a good night's sleep during the long flight back. Otherwise, he would surely suffer from insomnia or work on the plane, and she worried about his health. "Have some hot milk," Fiona said, handing him the glass. Ethan Lancaster took it and drank it all, then closed his eyes. He had intended to rest for a while before getting back to work, but a wave of drowsiness washed over him, and he ended up sleeping for a full 10 hours. He rarely dreamed, but perhaps because he was so tired today, he had a dream for the first time in a long while. He dreamed he was back in middle school, dreaming of the little girl named Lingchi. Chapter 19. Could they be the same person? It was a midsummer afternoon. The summer afternoons were scorching and drowsy. The cicadas chirped incessantly in the trees. After playing basketball for half of the gym class, he returned to the classroom to catch up on his nap. The girl named Lingchi left the playground, holding a bottle of mineral water, and furtively followed him into the classroom. Her seat was to his left. Lingchi held the water bottle and paused as she walked past him. Then, a soft, sweet girl's voice came from above him. I bought you a bottle of water. You must be thirsty, right?" He was very tired and didn't bother to answer her. Lingchi carefully placed the water on his desk and tried to strike up a conversation. "Class president, I went running just now too. I heard running is good for your health. Actually, I don't like sports at all, but I have to do it because it's good for you. My mom said that you have to exercise to boost your immune system. Only with a strong immune system can you avoid getting sick. My mom told me I have to stay healthy and not get sick, especially with any serious illnesses. My blood type is a little different from others." At the time, he was very annoyed. He couldn't believe there could be such a bothersome woman in the world, even more annoying than the cicadas outside the window. He was too tired to even tell her to shut up. Listening to the girl's chattering voice, he unknowingly fell asleep. He didn't remember what she said. He forgot everything after waking up. As for why her blood type was different from others, he never asked. Perhaps it was because Fiona had given Saraphina blood today that he had such a dream. "My blood type is a little different from others." This sentence echoed in his mind. Ethan Lancaster's handsome brows furrowed. As he thought about it, he suddenly opened his eyes, startled from his dream. He stared at the ceiling of the plane, gasping for breath. Ha ha, his back was covered in a cold sweat. Ethan Lancaster raised a hand to massage his throbbing temples. Damn it, why was he having such a strange dream? Why did the Lingchi in his dream speak with a tone so similar to Saraphina's? Even the way she added a little particle at the end of her sentences was exactly the same. Saraphina and Lingchi, they were clearly two different people. Yet they spoke in such a similar way he closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the image of Saraphina cooking in the kitchen flashed before him. When he buckled her seatbelt, he had inadvertently glimpsed the butterfly tattoo on her waist. Fiona was asleep in the seat next to him. Ethan Lancaster glanced at her and sighed. He hadn't expected Saraphina to have the same rare Rh-negative blood type as Fiona. When Lingchi had said that her blood type was different from others, did she mean that she also had a rare blood type? He hadn't expected the three women he knew to all have rare blood types. As if he had discovered something interesting, Ethan Lancaster's lips curled into a smile. The smile hadn't lasted for more than a few seconds when he suddenly seemed to think of something. The smile froze on his lips. Wait, Lingchi and Saraphina both had rare blood types. A butterfly tattoo, could Saraphina be Lingchi? With so many similarities, could they be the same person? The cold sweat on Ethan Lancaster's back had already dried, but thinking about this, it instantly returned. The hand holding the water glass tightened. No, he had to investigate this matter thoroughly. Chapter 20. Personal investigation. A dozen or so hours later, the plane landed at Haicheng Capital Airport. Seeing Ethan Lancaster in good spirits, Fiona couldn't help but smile. The sleeping pill had worked. "Ethan, are you feeling better? Are you hungry? Where should we go for dinner?" "I'm not hungry. I need to go back to the office to handle something. If you're hungry, go to the hotel and eat first, Ethan Lancaster said expressionlessly as he got into the car. Watching the Maybach speed away, the understanding smile on Fiona's face vanished. She stomped her foot in frustration. Ethan Lancaster. Sir, you were looking for me? The assistant asked as he entered the CEO's office. Yes, I need you to investigate something for me, Ethan Lancaster said from his office chair, his eyes deep and inscrutable. Yes, what is it? I need you to investigate, Saraphina. It was afternoon when they landed. The assistant was very efficient and quickly found information on Saraphina's identity, reporting back to Ethan Lancaster around 8 o'clock that evening. Sir, Miss Vance's parents have both passed away. She attended Haicheng First Middle School. Haicheng First Middle School, completely different from the school Lingchi had attended. It seemed he had been overthinking things. How could a woman like Saraphina be the pure and kind Lingchi? That's enough. You can go, Ethan Lancaster interrupted before the assistant could finish. After the assistant left, Ethan stood up and slammed his fist on the desk, his knuckles cracking. Damn it, Ethan Lancaster, what the hell is wrong with you? Letting a woman mess with your head like this. Stop thinking about Saraphina, damn it, he had to force Saraphina out of his mind. The man's stern face returned to its usual calm, as if the storm of emotions from a moment ago had been just an illusion. George Hospital, USA. Saraphina woke up 36 hours after Ethan Lancaster had left. Ethan had kept his promise and let Julian Ellsworth go. The first thing Julian did after being released from custody was to go find Saraphina. Seeing her safe in the hospital, he let out a sigh of relief, a heavy weight lifting from his heart. Miss Vance is out of danger. There are no major issues at the moment. She will slowly recover once she wakes up. Okay, thank you, doctor, Julian said, exhaling in relief. Thank God, as long as Saraphina was out of danger. Otherwise, he would have lost the woman he loved and been charged with intentional murder. Julian stayed at the hospital to take care of Saraphina for a day and a night. The next morning, the bright American sun streamed in through the window, falling on Saraphina's pale, bloodless face. On the bed, Saraphina's long eyelashes fluttered, and the next second they opened. Her dark, lifeless eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. Julian poured a glass of water, intending to help her drink. When he turned around, he saw that the woman on the bed was awake. He was startled, then overjoyed. Saraphina, you're awake. Are you feeling better? How are you? Saraphina was finally awake, Julian. What are you doing here? Saraphina's lips moved, her voice a little hoarse. Have some water to soothe your throat. Julian brought the glass to her lips. Silly, of course I'm here to take care of you. The doctor said you haven't fully recovered and need to rest. I'll be here to take care of you during this time. Why was it Julian? Where was Ethan Lancaster? Saraphina glanced behind Julian, as if searching for someone. Seeing that it was just the two of them in the room, her eyes filled with an undisguised disappointment. Okay, Ethan Lancaster wasn't here. Chapter 21. Something's wrong. Seeing Saraphina's searching gaze, Julian paused, seeming to know what she was thinking. After she had some water, he explained, Ethan Lancaster and my sister went back to the country ahead of schedule. So soon? Saraphina was taken aback, pretending not to care. Oh, what does that have to do with me? Despite her words, her face couldn't hide her disappointment. Julian shrugged. Well, they are engaged after all. With the wedding approaching, they have to go back and prepare. Wedding. Saraphina's head snapped up, her eyes fixed on Julian, her voice suddenly rising. What wedding? They're getting married, don't you remember? Julian said casually, as if he didn't know his words would hurt her. They weren't in a hurry at first. My sister wanted to wait for you to wake up before going back, but Ethan seemed very eager to marry her. He suggested they go back early to get married and hold the wedding. They left a day ago, so they're already back in the country now. Eager? Was Ethan Lancaster that much in love with Fiona Ellsworth, so eager to marry her? A bitter smile touched Saraphina's lips. She lowered her head and whispered, Okay, I understand. Her voice was very soft. What's wrong? Julian seemed to finally notice that something was off with Saraphina, then pretended to have a sudden realization. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say all that, but Ethan Lancaster really is in a hurry. After all, the wedding with Fiona has been postponed for so long. Enough, don't say any more. I get it, Saraphina said, covering her ears and turning her head away, not wanting to hear any more. Julian fell silent for a moment, then changed the subject. Saraphina, didn't you say you like small animals? When you're better, I'll take you to a beautiful manor to live. The air is fresh, and there are lots of small animals and lush green scenery. How about that? Saraphina replied distractedly. A month later, Cheng, top floor of the Lancaster Group. An assistant holding a file knocked on the office door. Sir, I have something to report. Speak, the man said, turning around. What is it? The assistant reported. It's about the situation in the U.S. Miss Vance has recovered and was discharged from the hospital yesterday. The doctor sent an email saying she has fully recovered. I've had someone take care of the medical bills. She was discharged on her own. Ethan Lancaster asked, a sense of relief washing over him as he quickly grasped the key point. The assistant was taken aback, then shook his head. No, it was Mr. Julian Ellsworth who took her from the hospital. Although Miss Vance has fully recovered, she is still very weak and needs someone to take care of her. Oh, Ethan Lancaster said, pausing for a moment. He feigned indifference and waved his hand. I see, you can go. Yes, the moment the office door closed, the hand hanging by Ethan Lancaster's side clenched into a tight fist, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. Annoyed, he reached for a file but knocked over a glass of water instead. The water spilled all over the table and onto the laptop keyboard. With a sizzle, the laptop keyboard shorted out, and a puff of gray smoke rose from it. Ethan Lancaster cursed under his breath and called the assistant in. Take this laptop to be repaired as quickly as possible. There are important files on it. Yes, the assistant said, taking the laptop with a stunned expression. What was wrong with his boss? This was the first time he had ever knocked over a glass of water and broken a laptop. He seemed so distracted. Was something bothering him? A few days later, the laptop was repaired. Ethan Lancaster took it from the assistant and immediately turned it on. There were many important files on it, and losing them would be a significant loss for the company. The laptop started up. Just as he was about to check if any files were missing, he noticed something strange about the system. Chapter 22, his secret Ethan Lancaster called the assistant in. The assistant answered truthfully, Sir, the repairman said the laptop has a recovery function. After the files were damaged, it automatically restored to the settings from a year ago. So, the content on the computer includes not only recent files, but also some that were deleted a year ago. I see. After the assistant left, Ethan Lancaster moved the mouse and checked the files, confirming that nothing important was missing. Just as he was about to shut it down, his hand slipped, and the mouse clicked on something, causing a window to pop up. It was a blog pop-up. Ethan Lancaster was about to move the mouse to close it when his eyes caught the content of the blog. It was filled with pictures of him and Saraphina. Wait, not him, but his brother, Sterling Lancaster. Although they looked similar, his brother was clearly much gentler. Only the two of them could tell the difference. In other words, these were all photos of Sterling and Saraphina. Seeing the intimate photos of them embracing, Ethan Lancaster felt an unexpected pang of jealousy. Curiosity drove him to scroll down. Below the photos were the blog posts, starting from 3 years ago. There were too many, and they were too long for him to read carefully, so he scrolled to the most recent entries. What would Sterling write about Saraphina? October 3rd, Sunny. Today, Saraphina cooked for me for the first time. She made everything herself: fish-flavored shredded pork and minced pork with eggplant. They were both delicious. Saraphina asked me if it was good. To be honest, it wasn't great, but because she made it, it was a gourmet meal. I ate every last bite. I want Saraphina to cook for me for the rest of my life. I love Saraphina. She looks so adorable when she's cooking. I'm going to order a ring and propose to her when the time is right. Saraphina, I love you. I hope we can spend our lives together, get married, have children, and grow old together. It doesn't matter if your cooking isn't good. I'll learn to cook for you. From now on, you'll be my love. I'll make the money, and you'll be responsible for being beautiful. Saraphina, I'll love you for a lifetime, until death. In the short blog post, I love Saraphina was mentioned 3 times, showing how genuine Sterling's feelings for her were. Ethan Lancaster's hand on the mouse tightened slightly, a sense of annoyance rising within him. The more he read, the more annoyed he became. In the end, he simply closed the blog, poured himself a glass of cold water, and tried to calm down. New York, USA. The manor was located in the suburbs of New York. The U.S. was already sparsely populated, and this area was particularly scenic and quiet. There were also supermarkets and shopping centers nearby, making it a very suitable place to live. Saraphina hadn't expected Julian Ellsworth to choose such a beautiful and suitable place. Looking at the blooming roses in the yard and the blue sky and white clouds, her mood brightened. In the afternoon, after her nap, she hadn't been out all day, so she decided to go for a walk. She changed into casual clothes, tied her hair into a high ponytail, and went out. The neighborhoods in the U.S. were different from those in her home country, with single-family homes and wide, quiet public roads. She walked slowly along the edge of the road, letting the warm New York sun fall on her. Woof, woof, woof. Suddenly, she heard a few barks. Saraphina followed the sound and saw a small dog in the neighbor's yard. It had a clean white coat, and its little pink paws were resting on the gate. Its red tongue was lolling out, and its big, dark eyes were fixed on Saraphina. It seemed to like her very much and couldn't take its eyes off her. When Saraphina walked away, the little dog started barking. Saraphina stopped and couldn't help but walk over. Seeing her approach, the little dog wagged its tail excitedly. Woof, woof, woof. Just as Saraphina was about to pet the dog, another bark came from behind her. Chapter 23. Sudden realization. Saraphina turned to see that the next-door neighbor also had a white Samoyed, in the same position, resting on the fence. Its size and appearance were remarkably similar to the one beside her. If the two dogs were placed together, it would be truly difficult to tell which one belonged to which neighbor. They could easily get mixed up if both families took them for a walk. Wow, Saraphina was surprised that there could be two dogs so similar in the world. Hearing her exclamation, the owner of the dog on the left, a cheerful man with blonde hair and blue eyes, came out and greeted her with a smile. They look alike, don't they? Are these two dogs from the same litter? Saraphina asked curiously. If not, how could they look so similar? The American man shook his head. No, although they look very similar, they don't have the same parents. Their fathers are from the same litter, and their mothers are from the same litter, which is why they look so much alike. Oh, I see, Saraphina said with a smile, not giving it much thought. After a brief chat with the man, she continued her walk. As she was walking, something suddenly occurred to her, and she froze in place. The chiseled, handsome face of Ethan Lancaster and the face of Sterling Lancaster flashed before her eyes. The man's words echoed in her ears. These two little dogs are not from the same litter, but their fathers are from the same litter, and their mothers are from the same litter, which is why they look so much alike. Their fathers were from the same litter, and their mothers were from the same litter, that's why they looked so similar. In a flash, a bold idea struck her. Wait, if these two similar dogs weren't from the same litter, then Ethan Lancaster and Sterling Lancaster. Saraphina's heart skipped a beat. She stumbled back and sat down on a nearby bench, lost in thought. Julian Ellsworth's assistant went to the manor that afternoon to pick up a file for him. To his surprise, he couldn't find Saraphina anywhere and frantically searched for her. He finally found her sitting blankly on a bench by the street. The assistant ran to her side, nearly in tears. Miss Vance, I've finally found you. If Mr. Ellsworth knew you had gone out by yourself, and if you had gotten lost or something had happened, he would kill me. Please come back to the manor with us. Seeing Saraphina sitting there silently, the assistant waved his hand in front of her face. Miss Vance, what's wrong? What was wrong with Miss Vance? She was so lost in thought. Was something on her mind? After being called several times, Saraphina finally seemed to snap out of it. She blinked. Oh, okay, I'll go back with you. I just came out for a walk because the weather was nice. Tell Julian not to worry. Back at the manor, Saraphina said she was going to her room to rest and went upstairs, straight to the study. She grabbed a piece of paper and a pen and left a letter on the desk. She packed her things in her room and, after the assistant left, secretly slipped out of the manor. She had all her documents and belongings. She could buy clothes when she got back to her home country. Saraphina took a taxi to the airport. Her flight was at 5:30. Julian would be getting off work just as she was boarding. Once on the plane, Saraphina turned off her phone. She let out a sigh of relief only when the cabin door closed. Luckily, she had left in time. If she had been a little later, Julian would have been home from work, and she wouldn't have been so lucky to escape. The plane finally took off. After about 10 minutes, when it was safe to move around, Saraphina, who had drunk 2 bottles of water on the way, unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. As she was walking back to her seat from the restroom, she encountered a young woman with an Asian face. Chapter 24. A chance encounter. The aisle in the cabin wasn't very wide. Before Saraphina could move aside, the young woman, who was in a hurry and not looking where she was going, bumped right into her. "I'm so sorry, the young woman exclaimed, apologizing profusely. "It's all right, just be careful next time," Saraphina said with a shrug and a smile. She noticed the woman was wearing red high heels and tight leather pants and thought she was very fashionable. She couldn't help but look up at her face. Seeing the young woman's exquisitely made-up face, Saraphina paused, a thoughtful expression on her face. She stared at the woman for a few seconds before tentatively saying 2 words, "Penelope Monroe." Hearing her name, the young woman instinctively let out a soft "hum" and looked up. Seeing a stranger call her name, her eyes widened in shock. "How do you know my name is Penelope? You don't remember me?" Saraphina was also surprised that Penelope didn't recognize her. She pointed to herself and said, "We were classmates." Classmates? She had so many classmates in elementary and middle school. How could she remember them all? Penelope thought for a moment, then shook her head in frustration. "I don't remember. Who are you?" "I'm Lingchi, Penny," Saraphina said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Lingchi, you're Lingchi." "Really?" Penelope couldn't believe her ears. Was the woman in front of her really her friend Lingchi? "The one and only, though I've changed my name. I'm not called Lingchi anymore. My new name is Saraphina Vance," Saraphina explained with a small smile. "What are you doing on a flight from the US?" This was too much of a coincidence. They had actually met on a flight back to their home country. She hadn't even noticed Lingchi when she boarded. If she hadn't been in a hurry to get to the restroom, she might have missed her. That would have been such a shame. After her initial shock and surprise, Penelope's eyes turned red, and she threw her arms around Saraphina. "Weren't you going to the restroom? You should go." Yes. When Penelope came out of the restroom, she swapped seats with the man next to Saraphina. Penelope was beautiful, and the man readily agreed. Contentedly sitting next to Saraphina, Penelope took her hand and said with emotion, "So many years have passed in the blink of an eye. You've changed so much, Zio-chi. But you're still the same, as fashionable as ever." Reunited with an old friend, the dozen or so hours of the flight gave them plenty of time to catch up. They talked about what had happened over the years and reminisced about the past. New York. The flight to their home country had already been in the air for over an hour. Around 6 o'clock, Julian Ellsworth finished his work at the office. Worried that Saraphina would be bored by herself, he rushed back to the manor. "Saraphina, I'm back. I bought your favorite Chinese food. The Chinese food in the US isn't as authentic as back home, but this restaurant is pretty good. They have your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs," Julian said as he pushed open the door to Saraphina's room. Seeing the room empty, with no sign of Saraphina, the smile on his face instantly froze. Where was Saraphina? Where had she gone? He hadn't seen her in the living room on his way up. The assistant was also clueless. "Sir, I don't know either. When I left with the files, Miss Vance was in your study." "The study? Why would Saraphina go to his study? She had never been in his study before. Why suddenly?" A bad feeling rose in his heart. Julian rushed to the study, but there was no sign of Saraphina there either. Frantic, Julian was about to turn and search for her when he noticed a letter on his otherwise clean desk. Curiosity piqued, Julian walked over and picked up the envelope. The moment he saw the words "to Julian" on the front, he knew who it was from. Chapter 25. What right do you have? Julian quickly tore open the envelope and took out the letter. He skimmed through the contents, and his heart sank. The gist of the letter was that Saraphina had returned to her home country on urgent business. What business could she have? Was she going to find Ethan Lancaster? No, he had finally gotten her away from Ethan Lancaster. He had to find her. Julian took out his phone, unlocked it, and quickly opened a flight booking app. He booked the fastest flight back to his home country and walked out of the manor. Just as he opened the gate, he saw a strange black car parked outside. Julian paused. The door of the black car opened, and the man who stepped out was none other than Ethan Lancaster. "What are you doing here?" Julian frowned, his face showing his displeasure. I'm not here to see you, Ethan said, glancing past Julian. Where's Saraphina? You're looking for Saraphina? Why was Ethan Lancaster looking for Saraphina? Did he not know she had returned to their home country? Or was he pretending not to know? Julian's frown deepened. I don't know where she is either. Saraphina must have gone back to find Ethan Lancaster, yet here he was in front of him, also looking for her. You don't know. Heh, let me ask you, Julian Ellsworth, you were the one who took Saraphina from the hospital, right? You've been with her this whole time. If you don't know, then no one in the world does. And now you're telling me you don't know where she is. She must be in the villa. Open the gate. Or don't blame me for being forceful. Ethan's eyes glinted with a ruthless light. If Julian wouldn't cooperate, then he would have to take Saraphina back by any means necessary. Ethan Lancaster, what right do you have to look for Saraphina? Even if she were here, I wouldn't let you see her. You promised my sister you wouldn't contact Saraphina again, and now you're here looking for her. What is this? A gentleman's word is his bond, don't you know that? Julian was just as determined not to let Ethan find Saraphina. He had sworn to take care of her for the rest of his life. If she went back to Ethan Lancaster, she would surely be mistreated again. So I broke my promise. So I changed my mind. What of it? Taking back the woman I've slept with is perfectly normal. What's it to you, Mr. Ellsworth? Are you interested in my leftovers? Ethan Lancaster's words were as sharp as a poisoned blade, making one want to kill him. Julian, seemingly used to Ethan's provocations, ignored him and retorted coolly. First, Saraphina is not your leftovers. She is the love of my life and my future wife. Second, I will not give her to you, so you can give up. The assistant standing behind Julian trembled with fear at the murderous look in Ethan's eyes. Thank goodness the gate was closed. Ethan looked as if he was about to burst in and kill Julian. Who Saraphina belongs to is not for you to decide. Julian Ellsworth, I'm giving you 3 minutes. You'd better think it over, or don't blame me for what happens next, Ethan said through clenched teeth, his voice laced with a heavy threat. Forget 3 minutes. Even if you gave me 3 years, it wouldn't be enough, because I won't even consider it. He, too, wanted to know where Saraphina was right now. You won't talk? Fine, Julian Ellsworth. It seems you want to see the Ellsworth family ruined. Ethan's threat sent a flicker of panic through Julian, but it was fleeting. With Fiona by his side, Ethan wouldn't dare to touch the Ellsworth family. Watching Ethan get into his car and speed away, Julian also got into his car. He had to go back and find Saraphina. Chapter 26. She knows everything at the airport. Just before boarding, Julian thought for a moment, then took out his phone and called Fiona. Brother, what's up? Why is Ethan Lancaster in the U.S.? Ethan's in the U.S.? He came to see you? Fiona shrieked, unable to believe her ears. When did Ethan go to the U.S.? No wonder she couldn't reach him. Yes, he came to see me. Keep your man in check. Don't let him come looking for me. Brother, what do you mean by that? Where's Saraphina? Why else would Ethan go to the U.S.? He must have gone to find Saraphina. Saraphina's missing. She left a letter and disappeared. Brother, you're useless, Fiona cursed, exasperated. You can't even keep an eye on one woman. What are you good for? If Saraphina were still with her brother, it would be fine. But now that she was missing, what if Ethan found her? Fiona stomped her foot, both anxious and angry, but there was nothing she could do. On flight A1334 from New York to their home country, everyone in first class was asleep, except for 2 people who were still awake, talking as if they would never run out of things to say. Oh my God, no way, seriously? After listening to Saraphina's story, Penelope gasped, covering her mouth to keep from disturbing the other passengers. Yeah, Saraphina nodded. That's what's been happening all these years, and that's why I'm so different now. Penelope clicked her tongue and shook her head. Zio-chi, I never would have thought you were taken away after a car accident caused you to lose your memory, and you've only just started to remember things. She paused, then asked, what about the birthmark on your face? How did the birthmark disappear? The birthmark? Saraphina subconsciously touched the spot on her face where the birthmark used to be and gave a wry smile. My adoptive parents helped me get rid of it. Penelope made a playful, lecherous face and lifted Saraphina's chin. So clean and fair. Without the birthmark, our little Zio-chi is so beautiful. You look like that famous Korean actress, but you're prettier. When you called my name earlier, I didn't recognize you at all." "Thanks," Saraphina said, blushing slightly and touching her nose. Many of her old classmates had said the same thing. They couldn't believe she was the ugly duckling Lingchi from back then. "I knew you were pretty back in school. You had delicate features, a perfect oval face, and fair skin. It was just a shame about the birthmark. Without it, you're like a whole new person. Remember back then, you and Ethan Lancaster?" At the mention of his name, Penelope seemed to remember something and slapped her forehead. "Are you going back to find Ethan Lancaster?" Before Saraphina could answer, Penelope giggled and nudged her arm. "After all, I'm the only one who knows about your crush on him." No one in their class knew that Saraphina had a secret crush on Sterling, except for her. In Saraphina's eyes, Ethan Lancaster was a perfect god, the white moonlight in the sky, a star in the vast universe, bright, shining, and utterly unattainable. And although Saraphina was an excellent student back then, the ugly birthmark on her face made her the ugly duckling of the class. If Saraphina and Ethan Lancaster were to get together, it would be, as the old saying goes, like putting a beautiful flower in a pile of cow dung. Ethan Lancaster was the beautiful flower, and the ugly Saraphina was the cow dung. Of course, they could never be together. They lived in different worlds, their family backgrounds were vastly different. How could they possibly be together? But Penelope knew that Saraphina, no, Lingchi, was deeply in love with Ethan Lancaster. Chapter 27. A young crush. After Ethan Lancaster's gym class, Lingchi would use her meager allowance to buy him water, even though he never drank it. When he often forgot to do his homework and got scolded, she would secretly do 2 sets of homework, one with her name and one with his, so he would never be criticized again. There were countless other instances like this. Throughout middle school, Lingchi silently supported Ethan Lancaster from the shadows, while he remained completely oblivious to everything she did for him. Only Penelope saw it all. Every time she saw Ethan with the beautiful and charming school belle, she would secretly feel indignant for Lingchi. She did so much for him, yet he despised her. Meanwhile, the school belle's father merely knew his father, and she got to walk to and from school with him. Some people are just born with privileges others can never have. Penelope had tried to persuade Lingchi to give up, but she would just say, "My feelings for him have nothing to do with him." She loved him and was good to him out of her own free will. Even when Penelope called her a fool, she had no regrets. Ethan Lancaster, at the mention of his name, a shadow of sadness crossed Saraphina's eyes. She lowered her gaze, a bitter smile on her lips. Ethan Lancaster, he's still the same, as rebellious as ever. And just like back then, he didn't like her. No, he despised her. Whether she was Lingchi or Saraphina, Ethan Lancaster had never liked her. Many times she had wished she were Fiona Ellsworth. Then maybe Ethan would like her, just once. Even once would have been enough. Penelope wanted to ask how things were between them, if she had managed to win over her crush, but one look at Saraphina's expression told her everything she needed to know. Ethan Lancaster was not that easy to win over. What kind of man was he? Dashing, brilliant, and with immense wealth. He was not someone an ordinary woman like Saraphina could ever hope to attain. Not wanting to bring up Saraphina's painful memories, Penelope tactfully changed the subject. She took Saraphina's hand and said, "So, what are you going back for?" "To be honest, I want to investigate Ethan Lancaster's family background." The memory of the 2 identical dogs from a few hours ago made Saraphina even more anxious to return and investigate. Her face showed her urgency. Penelope reassured her, "Don't worry, when we get back I'll help you investigate his family background." Saraphina smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Penny. What's there to thank me for? We're best friends," Penelope said, putting her arm around Saraphina's shoulder with a grin. "By the way, although I don't know much about Ethan Lancaster, from what you've said, I can confirm that he and Sterling Lancaster are not twins. Don't forget, I was the class monitor back in school. I've seen his records, and he doesn't have a brother. But as for what their relationship is, that still needs to be investigated," Saraphina said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. What was their relationship? If Sterling and Ethan weren't brothers, why did they look so much alike? Don't think too much about it. Have a glass of hot milk and get some rest. We can find out the truth when we get back. Worrying now will only make you more anxious, you know? Penelope was still the same, caring for her like an older sister. "Okay." Saraphina obediently drank the hot milk and fell asleep. When she woke up, the plane had landed. Hey Chang, I'm back. Chapter 28. Waiting for death, Saraphina stepped off the plane in her high heels, collected her luggage, and walked out of the airport with Penelope. She was standing by the curb with her luggage cart, about to hail a taxi, when a man in sunglasses rushed toward her. He was holding a cold drink and seemed to be in a hurry to meet someone. Penelope instinctively moved to get out of his way, but it was as if they were magnets. They collided, and the man's drink spilled all over Penelope's clothes. A large wet patch spread across her chest. Penelope's face paled, and she glared at the man angrily. "What are you doing?" Saraphina's heart tightened, and she was about to intervene, but fortunately, the man was very apologetic. He apologized profusely and even bought Penelope a new set of clothes on the spot. Penelope's anger subsided slightly. "HMPH, you're lucky you're sensible." Her clothes were wet and uncomfortable. Penelope patted Saraphina's shoulder. "Sis, wait for me a minute. I'm going to change." "Go ahead, I'll wait for you here," Saraphina nodded. She watched Penelope go into the airport restroom, then sat down on her luggage to wait. A few minutes after Penelope left, a black Volkswagen suddenly pulled up in front of her. Saraphina was taken aback. Thinking someone was getting out of the car, she was about to get up and move out of the way. The door of the black Volkswagen slid open, and two burly men appeared. Startled before Saraphina could react, the two men grabbed her by the arms and threw her into the car. Before Saraphina could say another word, the car door slammed shut. The black Volkswagen sped away, leaving two suitcases behind. People came and went, but no one noticed what had happened. Those who didn't dare to say anything. When Penelope came out of the restroom in her new clothes, she walked toward where Saraphina had been waiting. From a distance, she saw two lone suitcases, but Saraphina was nowhere to be found. Had Saraphina gone to buy something? Impossible. She wouldn't have left her luggage behind. Had something happened to Saraphina? Penelope waited and waited, but Saraphina didn't return. Her phone was off. Without a second thought, Penelope called the police. The police arrived and immediately checked the airport surveillance footage. From the recording, Penelope saw Saraphina being taken away in a black Volkswagen. The license plate was, there was no license plate, kidnapped. Penelope covered her mouth to keep from screaming. It was clear that Saraphina had been kidnapped. "Officer, can you please send someone to find my friend immediately?" The police officer shook his head. "I'm afraid we can't do that. A person must be missing for at least 24 hours before we can file a report and start a search." 24 hours by the time they found her? She could be dead. No, she couldn't just sit and wait in her panic. An idea flashed through her mind. A name appeared in her head. He was the only one who could find Chi now. At the Lancaster Group. "I'm looking for your CEO. Where is Ethan Lancaster?" Penelope had run all the way here and was out of breath. The receptionist smiled and replied, "Our CEO is out of the country. Do you have an appointment? Can you give me his contact information?" Penelope was frantic. Right now, in Haicheng, only Ethan Lancaster had the power to find Chi. Hearing this, the receptionist dismissed Penelope as another obsessed fan, and her expression immediately soured. "We've seen plenty of women like you. Take a look at yourself. Security, get this person out of here." "Hey, listen to me." No matter how much Penelope tried to explain, she was still thrown out of the Lancaster Group building. Standing in front of the building, Penelope let out a frustrated sigh. What now? What else could she do? She couldn't find Ethan Lancaster, so she could only hope that the Haicheng police were competent enough to find Chi. Chapter 29. The body is already cold. Penelope stood in front of the Lancaster Group building for a while before finally deciding to leave. She went to the police station, filed a report, and cooperated with the investigation. "The victim has been missing for 24 hours and there is still no trace of her. We will immediately dispatch officers to search for her. Please rest assured." "Okay, thank you." 24 hours, by the time they found Saraphina, her body would be cold. Now, all she could do was pray that Chi was safe and that her kidnappers didn't have any terrible intentions. At that moment, the black Volkswagen pulled up outside a villa in the suburbs. A few minutes earlier, Saraphina had been dragged into the car by several burly men. The moment the door closed, she knew what it was: a kidnapping. These people were kidnapping her. She opened her mouth to scream for help, but one of the men covered it. There was a powdery substance on the man's palm. When she inhaled it, a wave of dizziness washed over her, and her vision blurred. No, she couldn't pass out, she couldn't, but no amount of willpower could overcome the drug. After a few seconds of struggle, Saraphina's eyes rolled back, and she lost consciousness. Damn, this chick is tough. Most people pass out in 3 seconds from this stuff. She lasted 10, one of the men exclaimed, surprised by her resilience. None of your business, just get her to where she needs to be. After the car stopped, the men carried the unconscious Saraphina into a room in the villa. She'll wake up soon. This one's a fighter, so make sure she doesn't get away. Tie her up and lock the door. If the boss comes and she's gone, it's your heads. Yes, sir. Saraphina woke up 2 hours later. Her head was throbbing. She opened her eyes to complete darkness. For a moment, she thought she had gone blind, but then she saw a sliver of light from a window and realized she was tied up in a dark room. Her hands and feet were bound, and there was something stuffed in her mouth. All signs pointed to one thing. She had been kidnapped. The motive for kidnapping was usually money, but who would they demand a ransom from? Her adoptive parents didn't have money, and her relationship with Julian Ellsworth wasn't that close. Besides, she had just returned to the country. Who would hate her enough to track her and kidnap her? It had to be someone who hated her deeply, but she couldn't think of anyone. She soon found out. About half an hour after she woke up, just as she was trying to figure out how to escape, she heard footsteps outside. Someone was coming. Who could it be? Every nerve in Saraphina's body tensed. Holding her breath, she heard the footsteps stop outside the door. There were voices, but she couldn't make them out through the door. Saraphina swallowed hard. After a brief exchange, she heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. They were coming. Were they going to kill her? What should she do? Saraphina's nerves were stretched to their limit. She stared at the door. The door creaked open. The first person to enter was a young woman. When she saw the woman's face, if it weren't for the gag in her mouth, Saraphina would have cried out in shock. Chapter 30, Making a Deal with the Devil. Fiona Ellsworth? Why was it her? Saraphina, long time no see. Why are you looking at me with such a shocked expression? Fiona dismissed the men, closed the door, turned on the light, and slowly walked toward Saraphina. The last time we met, you were shot. My brother took good care of you, didn't he? I didn't want to kidnap you, but you're just too restless. You should have stayed with my brother. Now I have no choice but to deal with you. MMMPH? Saraphina desperately wanted to ask Fiona why she had kidnapped her, but she couldn't make a sound. I know what you want to ask. Why did I kidnap you? Don't you know the answer to that yourself? As she spoke, Fiona reached Saraphina. She pulled out a sharp dagger from somewhere and pressed it against Saraphina's beautiful, fair cheek. Then, she leaned in close and narrowed her eyes. Tusk, 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 what a delicate face. So delicate it makes one jealous. Saraphina, do you know what I hate most about you? Your seductive looks. You're so bewitching. You seduced my brother. And then you seduced Ethan. If it weren't for you, why would Ethan abandon me, his childhood sweetheart? The person who should be making love to him is me, not you. Saraphina, you stole my Ethan, and you did what I was supposed to do. Why don't you just die? MMMPH. Saraphina tried to explain, but Fiona didn't seem to want to listen. No matter how much she mumbled, Fiona didn't remove the gag from her mouth. You want to talk? I have something to tell you. I found your parents' graves. Before you open your mouth, you'd better think carefully about what you should and shouldn't say. If you say the wrong thing, I'll dig up your parents' graves and make sure they never find peace. Saraphina thought for a moment, then nodded vigorously, signaling for Fiona to remove the gag. After the gag was removed, Saraphina coughed a few times. What do you want me to say? I'll say anything. Just come at me. Don't do anything to my parents. All right then, I need you to say a few things. If you say them honestly, I'll spare your parents. Otherwise, their bodies will be desecrated, and they won't find peace even in death. Fiona's lips curled into a cold, terrifying smile. Saraphina's scalp tingled. Though unwilling, she was at Fiona's mercy and had no choice but to agree. What do you want me to say? Say that you seduced Ethan Lancaster only because of his vast wealth and power, Fiona ordered with a sinister, triumphant smile. Fine, Saraphina agreed without a second thought. Fiona wanted her to say these things and record them. It was obvious she intended to play it for Ethan. She was trapped and had no choice. If she refused, Fiona might actually dig up her parents' graves. Saraphina waited for Fiona to take out a recording pen, then repeated Fiona's words. "Is that enough? When will you let me go?" "Let you go? In your dreams." Fiona turned off the recording pen and said vaguely, "I don't know, just wait." With that, Fiona left. Hearing the door slam shut, Saraphina's heart sank. She smiled bitterly. Making a deal with the devil never ends well. As expected, Fiona didn't reappear in the following hours, nor did she let her go. Chapter 31, Where are they taking her? Saraphina's body ached from being tied up. She didn't know how much time had passed. The room was dark and silent, as if centuries had gone by. Finally, she heard a sound outside the door. Saraphina, who had been sleeping lightly, shot her eyes open just as the door opened. Several burly men walked in, glanced at her, and said, "Take her away, take her away." Where were they taking her? As the men carried her out of the villa, Saraphina realized it was already dark. So much time had passed. She wondered if Penelope had called the police, and when they would arrive, she hadn't expected Fiona to let her go. And it was clear these men weren't about to release her either. After being carried to the car, they drove through winding roads into a deep forest. The villa was already in the suburbs, and this area was even more remote, completely deserted. A bad feeling washed over Saraphina. As she had feared, they drove deep into the forest and stopped. The men carried her out of the car and threw her on the ground. What a pity. If you hadn't offended the boss, you wouldn't have to die such a miserable death. MMMPH. Saraphina's eyes widened in terror, trying to appeal to the men's sympathy, but they simply left her there and walked away without a second glance. Saraphina could only watch as they disappeared from sight. With great effort, Saraphina managed to spit out the gag, but she couldn't break free from the ropes. Just as she was about to shout for help, a wolf's howl echoed through the surrounding woods. Terrified, Saraphina froze and clamped her mouth shut. Whether from the cold of the forest night or the fear of being discovered by wild animals, she began to tremble violently. What should she do now? How could she get out of here? Hey Chang. Holding the recording pen, Fiona left the villa with a satisfied smile on her face. As soon as Ethan heard this recording, he would surely give up on Saraphina. Then, he would be hers forever. With that thought, Fiona quickened her pace, got into her car, and drove back to her place. When her subordinate called to report that they had left Saraphina in the wilderness, a triumphant smile spread across her face. Ha, perfect Saraphina, all alone and tied up in the wilderness, would die of thirst and hunger within a week. Once she was dead, no one would be able to compete with her for Ethan Lancaster. Ethan was still in the US. Fiona was about to call him to ask when he was coming back when, after her shower, she unexpectedly received a call from him. Surprised and delighted, Fiona called him back. "Ethan, I was just in the shower. Did you call for something urgent?" "Oh, it's nothing. I'm at the airport now. I'll be back soon," came the man's magnetic, pleasant voice. "You're at the airport. Then you'll be back tomorrow. I'll come pick you up." After a brief chat, Ethan hung up. Fiona picked up the recording pen from the table and looked at it for a moment, then clenched it in her hand. HMPH, with this recording pen, she didn't believe Ethan would still have any feelings for Saraphina. "Saraphina, oh Saraphina, you think you're so clever? You're still too naive to compete with me." The next day, Ethan arrived back in the country. Fiona picked him up, and they went to a restaurant for a welcome-back meal. Before the meal, Ethan went to the restroom. Watching him leave, Fiona's eyes darted around. She took a recording pen from her bag and placed it on the table. Ethan returned shortly. As he sat down, he noticed the recording pen Fiona had placed conspicuously on the table. It was impossible to miss. What was this? Before Ethan could ask, Fiona exclaimed, "Oh, I need to wash my hands too. Wait for me a minute, Ethan." With that, she stood up and left the private dining room. Ethan stared at the recording pen for a long time before finally picking it up. Chapter 32. Losing his temper as Fiona came out of the restroom, she heard a commotion nearby. 2 waiters ran past her. "What happened? What happened?" "I heard a guest in one of the private rooms flipped the table and smashed everything inside." "What? Why? Who provoked him?" "No one provoked him. He was the only one in the room. And he's a very handsome young man." "If he's so handsome, why is he acting so crazy? Why would he suddenly lose his temper like that?" Fiona was about to ask someone what was going on when she heard the conversation, and her face instantly changed. The man they were talking about had to be Ethan. Was he going to do something foolish? Fiona rushed back to the private room. Before she even entered, she saw the chaos inside. Ethan was standing by the wall, one hand balled into a fist, punching the wall. Blood was dripping from the back of both of his hands. Fiona's face turned pale with fear. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Ethan stood motionless, his body tense, like a stone statue. As Fiona got closer, she heard him grit his teeth and force out a few words. "Saraphina seduced me just for my money." Good, very good." Fiona was taken aback, then a victorious smile spread across her face. Ethan had fallen for it. Ethan hated materialistic women the most. "Saraphina, just you wait for Ethan to despise you." Downstairs at the Lancaster group, it had been 3 days. Zio Chi had been missing for 3 days, and the police search had yielded no results. Penelope was frantic. Her only hope was to find Ethan. If she could just see him, she might be able to find Zio Chi. She didn't know what kind of luck she had today. After parking her car in the Lancaster group's parking lot, she was hit by a luxury car as she was getting out. Penelope cried out and fell to the ground. The driver slammed on the brakes and got out to check on her. "Ma'am, are you all right? Don't you have eyes?" Penelope was about to curse him out when she looked up and saw his face. She was shocked. "Ethan Lancaster? It's you, Penelope." Ethan recognized her too. "Ethan Lancaster, I have something to tell you, Saraphina." "Who is it?" "Ethan, is she a friend of yours?" Before Penelope could finish, a woman got out of the car, walked over, and linked her arm with Ethan's, smiling as she looked Penelope up and down. "Ethan Lancaster, I have something to say to you. Can we talk in private?" Penelope glanced at the woman, knowing she was the one Zio Chi had told her about, Ethan's fiancée, Fiona Ellsworth, a total phony. "What is it? Are you very close with our Ethan?" Fiona asked, eyeing Penelope warily. Hearing Penelope say the name, Saraphina, Ethan seemed to know what she was going to say and frowned in disgust. "I don't want to hear anything about her." "Yes, let's go, Ethan," Fiona said, pulling him away, eager to leave before Penelope could say anything else. Ethan Lancaster stopped right there. He couldn't leave if he left. Zio Chi would surely die in her desperation. Penelope threw caution to the wind and shouted, "Saraphina was kidnapped 3 days ago and is missing. Her life is in danger." After shouting, Penelope saw Ethan stop. She let out a sigh of relief. Thank God. The next second, a man grabbed her by the collar, and she was face to face with Ethan's furious expression. "Saraphina is missing. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Chapter 33. "Is she Lingchi? I came here as soon as I could. You can check the front desk surveillance footage. Saraphina came back to find you. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't be missing." Ethan let go of Penelope and shouted at his assistant, "Get people on it immediately. I want you to turn Hei Cheng upside down if you have to, but find Saraphina." Fiona's face turned pale. She gritted her teeth. Damn it, it was all this Penelope's fault. If she hadn't shown up, why would Ethan want to find Saraphina? She didn't know if that wench Saraphina was dead yet. What if she wasn't? Just as Fiona was about to stop Ethan, her phone vibrated. It was a call from Julian Ellsworth. "Brother, what is it?" Fiona answered impatiently. "What is it? The family company is in trouble. The stock suddenly plummeted, and Dad's blood pressure shot up from the stress. He fainted and was taken to the hospital. You're in the country, aren't you going to go check on the company?" Julian's anxious voice came through the phone. Fiona felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her. She was stunned. "The company's in trouble?" After hanging up, she bit her lip and looked at Ethan. After a moment of hesitation, she chose to go back to the company. If the Ellsworth group was gone, she would have no value to Ethan Lancaster. The company was more important. On the way back to the company, the thought of Ethan going to find Saraphina filled Fiona with unease. What if Ethan found Saraphina? No, she had to make him completely give up on her. She picked up her phone and called her subordinate. "Do something for me. Release Saraphina's scandal. I want all the news media to report on it." Meanwhile, Ethan got into his car to search for Saraphina. Penelope followed him and held the car door open. "I'm going with you. Let's go to the police station to find out what's going on." "All right," Ethan said. He had been about to refuse, but seeing how anxious Penelope was, he thought that 2 heads were better than 1 and agreed. They both got into the car. At the police station. Given Ethan Lancaster's status in Hei Cheng, the police chief personally came out to greet him when he heard he was there. He invited them into his office, served them tea, and was incredibly attentive. In Haicheng, if Ethan Lancaster stomped his foot, the whole city would tremble. A few hours ago, when she came, these people had been dismissive. Now that Ethan was here, they were treating him like their own father. "Mr. Lancaster, please wait a moment. We will get the victim's information and report back to you shortly." During the 10-minute wait, Penelope took a sip of water and looked at the handsome, perfect man before her, thinking that this was the man Xiao Qi had been in love with for so many years. After a while, a police officer came in and reported, "We haven't found the victim yet. We have deployed more manpower." "What? How can you not have found her yet? It's been 3 days. You could find a dog by now. She's a living person. Are you all incompetent? You can't even find one person." Penelope burst into tears. The thought of Xiao Qi, all alone and in danger, made her both angry and anxious. Seeing Ethan so calm, she couldn't help but unleash her fury on him. "It's all your fault, Ethan Lancaster. If it weren't for you, why would Xiao Qi have come back? Why would she have been kidnapped and disappeared for 3 days and 3 nights without a trace? How could Xiao Qi have been so blind as to fall in love with a man like you? She was blind to have loved you for over a decade. She wasted her time on you." Penelope was so angry that she blurted everything out at once. "Xiao Qi? Who was Penelope talking about?" "Saraphina. When did Saraphina get the nickname Xiao Qi? What decade? Saraphina has been in love with me for over a decade. Are you kidding me?" Ethan was even more confused by the end of her tirade. Even if Saraphina did like him, it hadn't been for a decade, not even a few years. Where did this decade come from? Now it was Penelope's turn to be confused. She stared at Ethan with a strange expression. "Ethan Lancaster, have you forgotten? Did you have a serious illness and lose your memory? Don't you remember? Saraphina is Xiao Qi. Saraphina is the Lingchi you used to bully. Xiao Qi has been in love with you since she was a child. She's been secretly in love with you for so many years. Even her own parents didn't know. I'm the only one who knew about her crush on you. She did so much for you. Who do you think was always doing your homework? Who do you think bought you bandages when you got hurt playing ball? What? Saraphina was Lingchi?" Chapter 34. Heavy karma. Hearing these incredible words from Penelope, Ethan Lancaster could hardly believe it. But Penelope wouldn't lie. She had no reason to, especially not with such a ridiculous, monumental lie. "What did you say?" "Saraphina." Ethan's body shook, his face changed, and he stared at Penelope, his sharp eyes filled with disbelief. "Ha, Xiao Qi has loved you for so many years, and you can't even recognize that Saraphina is Xiao Qi? She wasted over a decade of her youth on a scumbag like you?" Penelope sneered. Ethan was speechless for a long time before finally forcing out a few words. "She liked me. How did I not know?" "You didn't know? Of course you didn't know. Saraphina told you about it a long time ago. She confessed to you. The fact that you don't know she likes you proves one thing: you're not Ethan Lancaster at all." Penelope's eyes burned as she grabbed him. "Tell me, who are you?" Ethan's body shook again. He looked up, his shocked gaze falling on Penelope's face. "Saraphina is really Lingchi. Saraphina is Lingchi. Saraphina is Lingchi. How could Saraphina be Lingchi? Saraphina was actually Lingchi. She was the Lingchi he used to bully. No, that's impossible. How could Saraphina be Lingchi? Did she change her name? But Saraphina has parents. Lingchi was an orphan. How could she have parents?" Seeing Ethan still deceiving himself, Penelope's eyes filled with pity. "Ethan Lancaster, why would I lie to you? Saraphina is Lingchi. She has parents because she was adopted. Her name was changed by her adoptive parents. I can tell you for a fact that Saraphina is Lingchi. I was Xiao Qi's best friend in middle school. We're close. I have no reason to deceive you." Ethan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His tall, imposing figure trembled violently. Saraphina was really Lingchi. She was the Lingchi he used to bully, the Lingchi he wanted to make amends with, the Lingchi he wanted to cherish. Before Penelope could finish, Ethan suddenly roared like a madman. "Someone get me more people, deploy all of Haicheng's police force, no matter what, find my woman." Seeing Ethan so concerned and anxious for Saraphina, Penelope let out a sigh of relief. So Ethan didn't know Saraphina was Xiao Qi. No wonder she had looked so sad on the plane. He must have bullied her. Well, now he was getting what he deserved. With Xiao Qi missing, Ethan would finally know what it felt like to lose someone important. At the Lancaster group, at 3 in the morning, The entire building was empty except for a single desk lamp lit in the top floor CEO's office. The laptop screen was on. Ethan Lancaster sat in front of it, scrolling through a blog page. The assistant stood outside the office door, unsure whether to intervene. The CEO had been reading since 10 o'clock at night for 5 hours straight without sleeping. "Sir, it's been 5 hours. Would you like to get some rest?" "No need." "You can go." He couldn't sleep. The last time he had found his brother's blog, he hadn't read it carefully. Today, he finally took the time to read it and was shocked to find that, from the very beginning, 3 years ago, Sterling had known Lingchi's identity. Chapter 35. The original diary entry. The original entry read: March 10th. Weather, cloudy. There's a secret I plan to tell my brother at the right time. To be honest, I've never had the courage to tell Ethan. The woman I love, Saraphina, is the same adorable little girl from back then, Lingchi, the girl my brother thinks has left this world. I really want to tell him this secret, but yesterday, when our family was pressuring him to find a girlfriend, he told me that the only woman he's ever loved was the little girl from middle school, the one he bullied and who lost her life. Saraphina is the woman my brother loves, but I love her too. Love is selfish. I love my brother, but I love Saraphina more. Since I've been taking his place for so many years, I'll just continue to take care of Saraphina in his stead. This secret might be kept for a lifetime. Perhaps when I'm old and dying will be the best time to tell him. After reading this blog entry, written by his own brother, Sterling Lancaster, Ethan didn't know how to describe the feeling in his heart. His most respected and beloved brother had hidden such an important matter from him for so long. He had been a fool, kept in the dark. If it weren't for his computer breaking down and the settings being restored to a year ago, revealing his brother's blog, he might have been deceived forever, never knowing the truth. Hearing the truth from Penelope and then seeing it confirmed in his brother's blog, Ethan had no choice but to accept it, no matter how unbelievable it was. Saraphina was Lingchi. Ethan took a deep breath, clenched his fists to control his emotions, and continued reading. Sterling's blog was entirely about Saraphina, documenting her every adorable moment and all her good qualities. The blog also recounted how they first met. They had met on a cruise ship. Sterling was a wealthy young master, and there were countless women trying to climb the social ladder by getting close to him. At the time, Saraphina was working on the ship, mopping the floors. Sterling was chatting with a friend on the deck, surrounded by a flock of beautiful women, all trying to seduce him and marry into wealth. His friend told him to pick one to be his girlfriend. Sterling smiled and said they were all after his money, and he wasn't interested. Then his friend saw Saraphina mopping the floor, his eyes lit up, and he handed Sterling a stack of US dollars, telling him to throw it on the floor and see if this woman was also greedy. Sterling, in a playful mood, threw the money and saw Saraphina's eyes light up at the sight of it. He sneered, thinking they were all the same. But the next second, he changed his mind. Saraphina picked up the stack of money and went around asking whose it was, muttering to herself, "The person who lost this must be so anxious." In that moment, Sterling realized for the first time that not all girls were like that. There were still such kind and beautiful souls in the world. Reading this part, Ethan's mood inexplicably soured. He loosened his tie and chugged the cold coffee in his mug. After calming down a bit, he continued reading. The following entries described how he and Saraphina met and quickly fell in love. Later, he discovered that Saraphina liked him because she had mistaken him for Ethan Lancaster. Sterling didn't reveal the truth and, out of greed and selfishness, continued to accept her affection. Affection that should have belonged to Ethan Lancaster. In the blog, Sterling expressed his guilt and apology, but his happiness far outweighed it. By the time Ethan read this, it was already 4 or 5 in the morning. The sky was beginning to lighten. He felt no sleepiness at all and continued reading. The next part of the blog detailed the things Sterling had done behind Saraphina's back. Chapter 36. Selfish love. Saraphina was an orphan. He wanted to give her a happy family to make up for what she had lost, so he found her deceased, biological parents. He also had the birthmark on her waist turned into a tattoo and told her not to change her name or let anyone other than them know she was Lingchi. Sterling did all this because he was afraid that Saraphina would meet Ethan Lancaster and tell him the truth. His love was selfish to the extreme. He wanted to have Saraphina all to himself and not share her with anyone, especially not Ethan. By the time he had read through most of the blog, the sky had completely brightened. Ethan closed Sterling's blog and sat for a while, deep in thought. Suddenly, as if remembering something, he opened a drawer and took out a journal. This was the journal Sterling had written by hand. He skimmed through it and found that the contents were completely different from what was in the blog. It was as if two different people had written them, two different lives. Nothing in the blog and the journal matched up, but the handwriting in the journal was definitely his brother's. Was the content in the journal true, or was the content in the blog true? Having not slept all night, thinking about these things made his temples throb. After a while, he decided to stop thinking about it. He closed the journal, shut down the laptop, and glanced out the window to see that it was already bright outside. It was so early. Ethan checked the time and stood up, intending to go to the small break room in his office to rest. He hadn't taken 2 steps when someone started pounding on the office door. Ethan, are you in there?" "Ethan," it was Fiona's voice. What was she doing here so early? Ethan paused and frowned at the door. "Come in." "Ethan, you're really here? I thought the assistant was lying. I was wondering why you'd be at the office so early. I went to your house and couldn't find you. I thought you had gone on a business trip. I'm so glad you're here. Ethan, you scared me." Fiona's eyes were still tear-streaked, and her face was filled with anxiety. "What do you want?" "Ethan, we're getting engaged soon, right? We'll be family. They say family shares both blessings and hardships. Did you know the Ellsworth family is in trouble? The stock market crashed. I was hoping," Fiona pleaded, her pride forgotten. "Help. Did she ever think about what would happen when she threatened him?" Ethan sneered. "Fine, I'll help you. But I have one condition. Have your father write me a guarantee that he'll give me half of the Ellsworth Group's shares, and I'll help you get through this crisis." "Half the shares?" Fiona's face turned pale. "All right, I agree. A verbal agreement is easy. Words don't mean anything. I want it in black and white. Have your father write a statement giving me the shares, and I'll have someone save the Ellsworth Group immediately." Ethan threw a pen at her feet. There was no time to delay. If the Ellsworth Group was gone, she would lose her status to even be with Ethan Lancaster. What were shares compared to that? "All right." Fiona didn't hesitate to pick up the pen, took a piece of paper, and started writing. Seeing her writing, Ethan frowned. He had told her to have her father write it. What was she doing? Soon, Fiona finished writing, signed it, and handed it to Ethan. "Here's the statement. Please save the Ellsworth Group." Seeing the signature on the statement, Ethan was taken aback. "The handwriting? You can imitate your father's handwriting." "Yes, I often imitate my father's writing. The company has so many things to deal with, and sometimes he can't keep up, so I have to help anyway, Ethan. This is urgent. The Ellsworth Group is holding a press conference at 9 o'clock to announce bankruptcy. Please, you have to save us quickly. A gentleman's word is his bond. I'll get on it as soon as possible." Thank you so much." Fiona was overcome with gratitude. "I'll go back to the Ellsworth Group to stop the press conference." "Ethan, I love you." After Fiona left, Ethan picked up the statement and looked at the imitated handwriting, his brow furrowed in deep thought. Chapter 37. Eaten by a bear. Why would Fiona imitate her father's handwriting? The excuse of helping with company business seemed too far-fetched. He remembered a contract he had signed with her father a few months ago. Thinking of this, Ethan opened a drawer, found the contract, and compared the handwriting. To his surprise, they were identical. The resemblance was uncanny. It was impossible to tell them apart. He hadn't expected Fiona to be able to imitate others' handwriting. If she could imitate her father's, could she imitate others as well? The thought sent a dark glint through Ethan's deep eyes. After that day, the police deployed a large number of officers, even putting several important cases on hold, to investigate Saraphina's disappearance. Despite sending out hundreds of police officers and even mobilizing the entire city of Haicheng, they couldn't find her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. After a couple of anxious days, Penelope couldn't sit still any longer. She went to Ethan's residence in the middle of the night, only to find that he was also awake. He couldn't rest until he found Zio Chi. "Ethan Lancaster, have you found Zio Chi yet? What are your men doing? They can't even find one woman. It's been almost a week. If something happens to her, I'll never forgive you. I'm more worried about her safety than you are." You think I'm not anxious? What's the use of being anxious? I've already arranged for more people to search. I will find her, no matter what. He was even more anxious to find Lingchi than Penelope was. He had failed her over a decade ago. He never thought she was still alive. She had changed her name and her appearance, and had been by his side all along, thinking about what he had done to Saraphina. A sharp pain shot through Ethan's heart. Penelope was speechless, finally breaking down and crying, "Oh God, please help us find Xiaoqi soon. We need to see her, dead or alive." "Shut up," Ethan felt a sharp sting at her words and roared. "Saraphina is not dead, she's not. I won't allow her to die. She can't die without my permission." Penelope was startled. Ethan, what was wrong with him? The next day, there was news from the police. But it wasn't that they had found Saraphina. They had found the body of a woman in a remote mountain forest in Heicheng. To be precise, it wasn't a body. The woman had been eaten by a black bear. While searching for Saraphina, the police had found bloodstains and torn pieces of cloth in the forest. Experts confirmed that the blood belonged to a female and the clothes were a woman's. Miss Vance is missing without a trace. Based on the bloodstains, we speculate that this happened within the last few days. The time of death also matches. The time of the woman's death is very similar to the time of Miss Vance's disappearance. Since we can't find her, it's highly likely that this deceased person is Miss Vance. The assistant received the call from the police and immediately relayed the information to Ethan. Ethan had been expecting good news, but instead, he heard this devastating report. Eaten by a black bear, not even a complete body left. No, shut up, it's definitely not Saraphina. Who gave you the nerve to curse her like that? The assistant was startled by Ethan's lion-like roar, which echoed through the entire floor, a testament to the man's fury. "Sir, please calm down. Perhaps you should bring one of Miss Vance's relatives or acquaintances to identify the evidence." Chapter 38. Cursing after hanging up, Ethan immediately contacted Penelope. Penelope rushed out as soon as she got the call and met him at the police station. When she heard what had happened, all the color drained from her face. "Eaten by a black bear?" "Yes, let's go see if it's Saraphina's things," Ethan said, walking in first. They entered a room where some bloody clothes were laid out on the floor. Some of the fabric was so stained with blood that it was impossible to tell the original color. From this evidence alone, one could imagine the horrific ordeal the owner of the clothes had gone through. Penelope summoned all her courage to look. When she saw the fabric and a broken bracelet, she screamed, "That day, Xiaoqi was wearing a white dress, and that bracelet, I gave it to her on the plane." Xiaoqi was dead. Penelope couldn't accept that her best friend was dead. The grief was too much, and she fainted. Those were Saraphina's. Hearing Penelope's words, Ethan's body shook violently. His handsome face was covered in a pale, gloomy shadow. Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could Xiaoqi be dead? He had thought she was dead years ago, but she had been alive and well. She had a strong will to live. She hadn't died back then. Fate wouldn't be so cruel to her now. "Sir, what should we do now?" Penelope has identified. "Shut up, where's the chief? I want to see your chief." In the forensic department, the chief reported what Ethan wanted to know. "Mr. Lancaster, there have been no other missing persons reports recently, so this body couldn't be anyone else's." The implication was that the body was indeed Saraphina's. What about a DNA test? Ethan wouldn't give up. He wouldn't believe it until he saw her body. "I'm sorry, Miss Vance's parents have passed away, so we can't do a DNA comparison. Based on all the evidence, it's almost certainly Miss Vance. Please apply for a death certificate so she can rest in peace." "Dead? Ha, I haven't even seen a body, and you're telling me she's dead based on some random items. I need to see her, dead or alive, until I find her body. I won't apply for a death certificate." "Mr. Lancaster, why are you doing this to yourself?" The chief said sympathetically. "Please accept my condolences." Ethan exploded in a rage and flipped the table. "I told you to shut the hell up. Xiaoqi is not dead. His woman, without his permission, could absolutely not die." From her subordinates, Fiona learned that Saraphina had been found, eaten by a black bear, not even a body left. She was as pitiful as could be. Fiona couldn't help but feel triumphant, laughing out loud. "Good, that's great, ha-ha-ha, Saraphina. You little wench, you're finally dead, ha-ha-ha." Her wild, triumphant laughter was a stark contrast to her usual gentle and obedient demeanor. Hearing that Ethan was at the police station identifying the evidence, Fiona changed into a black dress and went out. At the police station, Penelope had been taken to the hospital after fainting from grief. As Ethan walked out of the police station, he ran into Fiona, who was rushing over. "Ethan, thank you for helping the Ellsworth family. I heard they found Miss Vance's remains. Don't be sad, you still have me, Ethan. I'm sure Miss Vance will be happy in heaven knowing that I'm here to take care of you." Shut the hell up. Before Fiona could finish, Ethan grabbed her by the neck. The man's eyes were bloodshot, a terrifying cold light glinting in them. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'm warning you, don't say Saraphina is dead again. She's not dead. I will find her." Ethan, cough, let go of me, I didn't kill her. "Why are you taking it out on me?" Fiona was so guilty that she screamed in terror. Had Ethan found out that she was the one who had killed her? Hearing her words, a cold glint flashed in Ethan's sharp eyes. "I didn't say you killed her. Why did you bring it up?" Chapter 39. Denial. Fiona's face turned pale, and she shook her head frantically. "No, nothing, Ethan, you're crazy. How could I kill Saraphina? She went missing in the wilderness and was eaten by a black bear. Didn't the police say they found bear fur and signs of a struggle at the scene? What does her death have to do with me?" "Ethan, I know you're angry, but you can't take it out on me. I'm innocent, I don't know anything." The moment Ethan suggested she might have killed Saraphina, Fiona admitted to herself that she had panicked. But she quickly calmed down and desperately denied any involvement, trying her best to distance herself from Saraphina's death. "Then, why are you so agitated?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, his eyes darkening. "You're accusing me." "Of course, I'm agitated. You're blaming me for murder." "Wouldn't you be agitated? Miss Vance was such a good person. I genuinely liked her. I'm sad that she's gone. How could I kill her?" As she spoke, Fiona managed to squeeze out a few tears to make him believe her. "Oh, is that so? I really didn't kill her. How could I kill Miss Vance? Besides, the police said a black bear ate her. What does that have to do with me? Am I the bear?" Fiona's words seemed to make sense. Ethan didn't bother to argue with her. Saraphina's disappearance was clearly a planned kidnapping. She had been taken and thrown into the wilderness. The bear eating her was, of course, not their fault. Once he found Saraphina, he would find out who had kidnapped her and tear the culprits to pieces. Right now, he was more interested in something else than whether Fiona was the murderer. "Get in the car with me." Ethan let go of Fiona and got into the car first. They drove to the Lancaster group, went upstairs, and entered his office. Fiona was puzzled. Why had Ethan brought her to his office? Ethan went into his office, opened a drawer, took out the journal, and threw it in front of Fiona. "Take a look, and answer me honestly. Did you forge my handwriting in this journal?" "What are you talking about?" Fiona didn't understand what he was saying until she saw the red leather journal on the desk. This journal was. Fiona instantly understood what Ethan meant, and her face changed. "Ethan, what are you talking about? I don't understand. How could this journal be mine? I don't even have the habit of keeping a journal, let alone imitating your handwriting. How could I forge your handwriting and write a journal? Did someone say something bad about me to make you suspect me?" "Oh." Ethan laughed as if he had heard the world's biggest joke. "You're still not going to admit it. Fiona, you're a master at forging handwriting. I know for a fact that I didn't write this, yet here's a journal in my handwriting. Tell me, who else could it be but you?" Fiona was mercilessly exposed, and her face turned a shade of purple. She could only force herself to say, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have the time to imitate someone's handwriting and write so many journal entries." "Is that so? Fiona, did you think I was going to die, so you could leave this behind to frame Saraphina? Did you not expect that not only would I not die, but that I would find this after you threw it away?" Faced with the advancing Ethan, Fiona took a step back in fear, clenching her fists and forcing a smile. I didn't, Chapter 40, deserve to die, still being stubborn. Don't think I don't know about the things you and your brother have done, the two of you. Colluding and doing all sorts of despicable things. I've seen it all. Your brother couldn't have Saraphina, so he found a woman who looked like her, had her undergo plastic surgery to look like Saraphina, and lived with her, staring at that face that resembled Saraphina's, fantasizing about her. Isn't that disgusting? What was the difference between that and a poor loser fantasizing about a goddess? Julian's actions were truly nauseating. Just the thought of him having another woman undergo plastic surgery to look like Saraphina made Ethan want to vomit. That, I didn't know my brother had done such a vile thing. Fiona knew that Julian liked Saraphina, but she never thought he liked her that much, to do something so disgusting just to remember her. Vile, what right do you have to criticize your own brother? Look at yourself, Fiona. You and Julian are two of a kind. There's not much difference between you. He's vile, and you're even worse. When Saraphina was on the verge of death, you dared to threaten me. We've known each other since we were children. You should know what kind of person I am. I don't take kindly to being controlled or threatened. You'd better get your priorities straight. Thinking back to that situation, Ethan still felt a surge of hatred. Saraphina's life was on the line, and Fiona used her to threaten him instead of helping. I'm sorry. After hearing Ethan's words, Fiona was silent for a long time. Her whole body trembled as she crouched down, her voice choked with sobs. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I didn't want to threaten you, Ethan. You said it yourself, we grew up together. I've loved you for so many years. I've loved you since I was a child. I want to marry you and have children with you. I thought you loved me too. You were supposed to be mine. Why did Saraphina have to come along and steal you from me? The person who knew you first was me, you're mine, only mine. Anyone who tried to take Ethan from her deserved to die, and Saraphina was no exception. If anyone tried to take him from her, they would suffer the same fate as Saraphina. Fortunately, Saraphina was dead. There was no one left in the world who could compete with her for Ethan. As Fiona cried, she started to laugh, her expression becoming somewhat terrifying. Ethan looked down at the sobbing woman. He hated seeing women cry, but no woman's tears had ever left him so unmoved. He didn't want to waste any more words on her. He had said what needed to be said. Fiona, you'd better hope I don't find out you hurt Saraphina. Otherwise, I won't let you off. With that cold parting shot, Ethan turned and left the office. Just as he left, Penelope, who had just been discharged from the hospital, came to the company to find him. Instead of Ethan, she found Fiona crying on the floor. You're Ethan Lancaster's fiancé? Penelope remembered Chi mentioning this. Fiona, a master manipulator. Who are you? Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is, are you the one who killed Saraphina? People's hearts are red. I'd really like to see what color yours is. Is it black? You should stop doing bad things. If you really did kill her, you should turn yourself in. Murderers who confess can get a reduced sentence. Saraphina stole my Ethan. She deserved to die, Fiona said, her red eyes glaring at Penelope. Chapter 41, I'll tell you a secret. Saraphina stole him from you. Wrong, it wasn't her. It was you. Let me tell you a secret. Do you know who Saraphina is? She's the only woman Ethan Lancaster has been thinking about all these years. Lingchi, you were never Chi. Saraphina is the one who should be loved by him, the one who should be marrying him when they met. You were probably off playing in the mud somewhere. Penelope threw her head back, tossed out the words, and, without another glance at Fiona, turned and left. Fiona remained crouched on the floor, her face a mask of shock. What? Saraphina, was that Lingchi? Saraphina was the woman Ethan Lancaster had been searching for all these years. How could that be? How could that be? Fiona stumbled back to the Ellsworth mansion, her mind replaying the words, Saraphina is Lingchi, over and over again. How could Saraphina be Lingchi? Wasn't Lingchi supposed to be ugly? Didn't she have a scar on her face? How did it disappear? Why was Saraphina the Lingchi that Ethan deeply loved? Why? But Saraphina was dead. No matter who she was, she would never have the chance to be with Ethan. At this thought, Fiona felt a slight sense of relief. She smiled faintly and composed herself. Just as she opened the car door, before she could see what was happening, she heard a wail. Her mother rushed to her and grabbed her arm. Fiona, you're finally back. Where have you been? Your father is sick in the hospital, and you've abandoned the family. The Ellsworth group has gone bankrupt. Didn't you say you were going to ask Ethan Lancaster for help? Where is he? Why hasn't he come to help us? Mom, the Ellsworth group has gone bankrupt. Are you kidding me? This morning, Ethan had promised her he would help the Ellsworth family. Where was the help? No one has come to help us. They already announced the bankruptcy this morning. We couldn't find you. And your phone was off. You have to go beg Ethan Lancaster. If your father finds out that the Ellsworth group, which he worked so hard to build his whole life, is gone, he'll die of anger. Mom, don't worry. I've talked to Ethan. He promised me he would save the Ellsworth family. How could he go back on his word? Fiona was also anxious, but she wasn't even sure if she could see Ethan, especially after their falling out. Fiona, tell me the truth. Did you and Ethan have a fight? Why are your eyes so red? Did he dump you because he found out our family was going bankrupt? Mrs. Ellsworth sensed Fiona's evasiveness and grabbed her wrist, demanding an answer. Mom, what are you talking about? Of course not. Ethan and I are fine. I was just sad because I heard Miss Vance died. Since you can't get through to Ethan, I'll go myself. Mrs. Ellsworth was determined. No matter what, she had to find Ethan Lancaster. He was the only one in Heicheng powerful enough to save the Ellsworth family. Mrs. Ellsworth went straight to the Lancaster residence. Hearing that Mrs. Ellsworth had come to visit, Ethan, who had just arrived home, coolly instructed the butler, "Don't let her in. Tell her to go back. Ethan, the Ellsworth family just went bankrupt. If we refuse to see her, people will say our family is heartless." What could Fiona's mother want? She's just here to beg for help. Do you want to help the Ellsworth family? Remember how Fiona threatened me? Helping them would be like the farmer and the snake. They're not worth our sympathy or our help. You are not to interfere in their affairs, and you are not to help them. If you do, then consider me no longer your son. With that, Ethan went upstairs. Ethan, sighed this child, he's so stubborn just like his father. Mrs. Lancaster sighed heavily. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not as cold-blooded as he is, Mr. Lancaster said, bewildered. So, are we going to help or not? If you want to go against our son, then go ahead and help the Ellsworth family. As for this matter, it's best we stay out of it and protect ourselves. Chapter 42. So that's how it is her son was right. The Ellsworth family had threatened the Lancaster family more than once. This outcome was, in a way, they're just deserts. Since Mr. Lancaster was on his son's side, and the two families weren't particularly close anyway, Mrs. Lancaster decided to wash her hands of the matter. Mrs. Ellsworth waited outside the Lancaster residence for a full 6 hours, kneeling and wailing, but neither of them came out to see her. If they had, she would have surely latched onto them and begged for help, and with so many people watching, they wouldn't have been able to refuse. Mrs. Ellsworth finally gave up and left late at night. Seeing her exhausted mother and learning that her day of begging had been fruitless and that she planned to go again tomorrow, Fiona's heart ached. Mom, don't go. I'll go find Ethan Lancaster tomorrow. At the very least, we were engaged. He'll surely show me some consideration for old time's sake. Even as she said this, Fiona felt a knot of anxiety. She knew what kind of man Ethan was, cold and ruthless. She might not even get a chance to see him. As expected, when she went to his company the next day, she was told he wouldn't see her. She wasn't even allowed to set foot inside the Lancaster Group building. Dejected, Fiona returned home. She tried again the next day, and the day after that, but Ethan still refused to see her. Fiona stood in the restroom, looking at her reflection in the mirror, her hand resting on her stomach. She was out of options. If Ethan wouldn't see her, the Ellsworth Group was truly finished. Her father's life's work. It couldn't end like this. She had to see Ethan. She had to play her trump card, no matter the cost, with her mind made up. Fiona swallowed her pride and went to the underground parking garage to wait for him. But it was as if Ethan had known she would be there. He was surrounded by several bodyguards. Fiona didn't care. She rushed forward. Ethan, please, for old time's sake, give me a few minutes. Hearing her voice, Ethan didn't stop. He quickened his pace. Ethan, I. Seeing him about to leave, Fiona knew she had to seize this chance. She shouted, I'm pregnant, I'm carrying your child. I was going to surprise you with this news at our wedding. But then all this happened, so I have to tell you now you're going to be a father. Ethan, for the sake of this child, can you please help the Ellsworth family? We can't lose everything, Ethan. Pregnant? At these words, Ethan stopped. After a few seconds, he turned to look at Fiona. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Here's the pregnancy test. It's true. If you don't believe me, you can take me to the hospital for a checkup. Fiona's tone was confident and unwavering, with no trace of a lie. Is that so? How interesting. This is the first I've heard of someone getting pregnant without having sex. Are you a chicken, capable of parthenogenesis? Did you get pregnant just from touching me? Ethan raised an eyebrow. He didn't remember ever sleeping with Fiona. Even if she was pregnant, the child in her belly belonged to someone else. Don't you remember? Fiona's face turned pale, and she trembled as she said, that time after we had been drinking, we were both so drunk. You held me and kissed me. We definitely slept together. Fiona's expression didn't look like she was lying. Ethan's cold eyes narrowed. Could it be that the person who had slept with Fiona was his brother? Was it Sterling Lancaster? His brother had loved Saraphina deeply, mentioning several times in his blog that his heart and soul belonged to her. Ethan knew his brother was a bit of a germaphobe, yet he had slept with Fiona. Given his brother's love for Saraphina, he would never have cheated on her willingly. It seemed that sleeping with Fiona was all part of her plan. Chapter 43. The child is gone. Sure enough, his brother had broken up with Saraphina not because she had initiated it, but because he had. He had been tricked into sleeping with Fiona and felt he was no longer worthy of the wonderful Saraphina, so he broke up with her, not wanting to hold her back. This woman had tricked his brother, and now she had the nerve to stand before him, proudly announcing her pregnancy. Even if the child was Sterling's, it couldn't be allowed to live. A woman like Fiona was not fit to be a mother, and certainly not fit to bear his brother's child. "You want me to help the Ellsworth family?" "Yes, are you willing to help?" Fiona was overjoyed. As soon as she mentioned the child, Ethan had agreed. He must still have feelings for her, but her joy was short-lived. Ethan spoke, "Get rid of the child in your belly, and I'll help the Ellsworth family." "Get rid of it?" Fiona was struck by lightning. "You want me to get rid of the child?" Was he kidding? If this child was gone, her only leverage would be gone. Would Ethan still help her? She would never get rid of this child. I won't, Fiona screamed and tried to run. Grab her? No matter how fast Fiona ran, she was no match for the trained bodyguards. She was caught in seconds and brought back. Let go of me, Fiona struggled violently, kicking and screaming like a madwoman. Her struggles were so intense that even the bodyguards were taken aback. But after a few moments, she let out a piercing scream, her face turning deathly pale as she doubled over, clutching her stomach. Ah, pain, pain! A stream of bright red liquid gushed from between her legs, running down her slender white thighs. "Sir, this," the bodyguards panicked, not knowing what to do, and immediately looked to Ethan for instructions. Ethan watched Fiona for a moment, then said coolly, "She's having a miscarriage. Call an ambulance and take her to the hospital." He spoke as if he were watching a stranger bleed, his face expressionless, his voice devoid of emotion. "Yes, sir." The bodyguards immediately called an ambulance and took the writhing Fiona to the hospital. Fiona had indeed suffered a uterine tear due to her violent struggling, which had affected the fetus and caused a miscarriage. She had already passed out from the pain by the time she was taken to the hospital. Upon arrival, she was immediately rushed to the emergency room, but it was too late. The fetus had already detached from the uterine wall and been expelled from her body on the way. It was only a few months old, a small, bloody mass. The doctors disposed of the miscarried fetus, having it taken away so the patient wouldn't see it when she woke up. Fiona's bleeding was stopped, and she was stabilized. She was still unconscious. The bodyguards reported her condition to Ethan, paid the medical bills, arranged for someone to take care of her, and left the hospital. Fiona woke up the next morning. She opened her eyes to see that she was in a hospital. Just as she was about to ask where she was and what had happened, the memory of what had happened before she passed out flooded her mind. Her stomach, Fiona's hand shot to her stomach. "My child, where's my child?" "Miss Ellsworth, you're awake." "I'm the one Mr. Lancaster sent to take care of you," a middle-aged woman said, appearing by her side. "Where's my child? Where is it? How is my child?" Fiona grabbed the woman's collar, her voice hysterical. "Your child," the woman stammered, "had a miscarriage. Gone?" The child was gone. Fiona felt as if she had been hit over the head with a club. Her mind was buzzing. "Impossible, you're lying, my child. How could my child be gone?" Fiona refused to accept the truth, screaming that she didn't believe it, until a doctor came and told her the facts. "Miss Ellsworth, please accept my condolences. If you take care of your health, you can have another child." Chapter 44, Plastic Surgery. "Oh, my baby." Fiona collapsed onto the hospital bed, sobbing her heart out. No one who hasn't been a mother can understand the love a mother has for her child. The little life is like her own, a part of her for months, and now it was gone. The Ellsworth group was bankrupt, her only child was gone. Fiona's life felt like a desolate wasteland. She even thought about suicide. Perhaps because she had lost all hope, Fiona seemed to have come to a decision. She said to the caregiver, "Please tell Ethan Lancaster that I'm willing to tell him everything, as long as he comes to the hospital to see me in person." The caregiver relayed the message to Ethan. Had she finally come to her senses, or was she playing another trick? Ethan decided to go see her. Whatever she had up her sleeve, he was ready for it. Maybe she would tell him something about Saraphina. The next afternoon, Ethan appeared in her hospital room. Fiona asked everyone to leave, then sat up and looked at him, her expression calm. "Long time no see. Speak. What did you want to see me about?" "What do you know?" Ethan had no intention of wasting time on pleasantries. "It's nothing much. You suspected I killed Saraphina. It was me. I was the one who threatened her and kidnapped her. I was jealous that she had your heart. After I threatened her and made her say those things, I left her in the mountains. I just wanted to punish her, to get back at her. I never thought there would be a black bear in the mountains. I really didn't mean to kill her. I swear, if I had known there was a bear, I would never have left her there. Not even if it meant my own death." Fiona desperately tried to convince him that she was innocent, that she had only wanted to get revenge on Saraphina and had no idea it would lead to her death. Seeing Ethan's face grow darker and colder, Fiona explained fearfully, "Besides, they haven't found Saraphina's body. No one can prove that the person who died was her. What if it wasn't? You need to see a body to be sure, right? They haven't found her body. How can they prove she's dead based on just a few of her belongings?" She wasn't trying to argue that Saraphina wasn't dead because she was afraid of Ethan's anger, but because if Saraphina was dead and she confessed, she would be charged with indirect murder, which was still a crime. Fiona thought the same thing as him. Saraphina couldn't be dead, but now they couldn't even find a trace of her. Ethan stared at her coldly for a long time, then a sneer touched his lips. "All right, in that case, I have an idea. Didn't your brother create a fake Saraphina to remember her by? Since you killed her and made her disappear, you should be punished. If you want to atone for your sins, you can also get plastic surgery to look like Saraphina. Then I'll forgive you." How about it? Plastic surgery? It wasn't that she was against plastic surgery. Who wouldn't want to be more beautiful? But why did she have to look like the woman she hated most? Saraphina's face, she wanted to tear it to pieces. And now Ethan wanted her to look like her every time she looked in the mirror. She would be reminded of Saraphina. It was terrifying. Ethan was getting his revenge on her. Fiona's face turned pale. "Ethan, I was wrong. You don't have to. The Ellsworth group needs help, right? If you get the surgery and look like Saraphina, I'll forgive you. And of course, if I forgive you, I can forgive what the Ellsworth group did to our family and what you did to me. We can let bygones be bygones. And of course, I'll also help the nearly bankrupt Ellsworth family." There was no denying that the offer was tempting. But she would never agree to look like Saraphina. Chapter 45. The same birthmark. "I won't do it. Please leave," Fiona refused. But just as Ethan left, her mother came in. She had been listening outside the door. "Mrs. Ellsworth immediately pinched Fiona's arm. "What are you thinking? Your father is sick in the hospital. Why did the Ellsworth group go bankrupt? Who's to blame for this mess? It's all because of you. If you hadn't offended Ethan Lancaster, would he have taken his anger out on our family? I'm telling you, Fiona, if you don't agree to his request, and the Ellsworth group is really gone, then the three of us might as well die together." Mrs. Ellsworth used every threat and trick she could think of, crying and screaming, trying to force Fiona to get the surgery to win back Ethan's forgiveness and help. Fiona couldn't get a word in. On the verge of tears, worn down by her mother's hysterics, she finally relented. "Mom, please get up. I'll do it. I'll get the surgery, all right?" Her wish granted, Mrs. Ellsworth finally stopped her tantrum. She immediately had the caregiver inform Ethan that Fiona had agreed and to arrange for the surgery. A week later, after Fiona had recovered, Ethan sent his men to pick her up from the hospital and take her directly to the most prestigious plastic surgery hospital in Haicheng. After an examination, Ethan instructed the doctor to schedule the surgery for the following week. The anesthesia made the surgery painless, but the recovery was excruciating. For days, she could only eat liquid food. A week later, the bandages were removed, revealing a face that was supposed to look like Saraphina's. But apart from the nose, nothing else was right. Disappointed, Ethan had Fiona sent to Japan for more surgery. More surgery so soon? Fiona was in despair, but seeing that Ethan was helping the Ellsworth group, which had temporarily averted crisis, she had no choice but to accept. A year later, Fiona, who had been undergoing plastic surgery by top experts in Japan, was finally free. Over the past year, she had lost count of the number of surgeries she had had. This time, Ethan was finally satisfied. She now looked almost identical to Saraphina. She could finally go home and see her parents overjoyed. Fiona boarded a flight. A dozen or so hours later, she landed. She had intended to go home, but she was forcibly taken by Ethan's men to the Lancaster group. "Ethan Lancaster wants to see me," Fiona asked nervously. The bodyguard didn't answer, simply leading her to the office. "Sir, Fiona Ellsworth is here." Fiona was pushed into the office. Seeing Ethan with his back to her, the hair on Fiona's arms stood on end. After being forced to undergo dozens of surgeries, she had developed a psychological fear of him. The sight of him terrified her. Ethan turned around. Seeing her face, his pupils constricted, and a name escaped his lips, Zio Chi. "Ethan Lancaster, I'm Fiona Ellsworth," Fiona said fearfully, as if afraid he would do something to her. "I know." The dazed look in Ethan's eyes vanished, replaced by an icy coldness. He stared at her face for a long time, then suddenly strode toward her. Before Fiona could react, he grabbed her chin, his cold eyes narrowed. "It's not enough, you're still not enough like Zio Chi." "What?" Fiona was horrified. "You don't have the same birthmark as Zio Chi. Get a birthmark just like hers." Saraphina had been missing for a whole year. They hadn't found a body, nor any sign of her. It was as if she had really died. For the past year, Ethan had lived in torment, never giving up the search. He believed that one day, Saraphina would return to him. A birthmark. I won't. The memory of the past 365 nights of agonizing pain from the surgeries sent a shiver down Fiona's spine. She didn't want to endure that pain again. She shook her head frantically, her wide eyes filled with tears. She would rather die than get another surgery, let alone a hideous birthmark. If she had a birthmark, how could she ever show her face in public again? Fiona resisted with all her might, refusing to get any more surgery. Chapter 46. Sincere hearts get answers. "Ethan, I'm begging you, I don't want any more surgery. It hurts so much. Please, I don't want to do this anymore. No surgery." "Fine," Ethan suddenly relented. "Really?" Fiona was overjoyed. "Of course, you have two choices, get the surgery or die. If you don't get the surgery, you can die," Ethan said, his lips curling as he spat out the cruel words. "I hate this face. You're not Zio Chi, you don't deserve to have this face. Sir, where are you going?" After sending Fiona away, the assistant handed Ethan the car keys. "Would you like me to drive you to the mountain where Saraphina went missing?" For the past year, whenever Ethan had time, he would go to the mountain to watch the search parties, sometimes even joining them. Although the forest was vast, a year was enough time to search every corner. He arrived at the mountain on the outskirts of the city, parked the car, and walked up the mountain on foot. After meeting with the search team from the police station, he let them continue their work. The team leader briefed the assistant, who, after some thought, chose his words carefully and reported to Ethan. "Sir, over the past year, the police have eliminated all the animals on the mountain. Now there are no bears, boars, or wolves, and even the birds are scarce. This mountain is truly desolate. There are no signs of any animal life." But they still hadn't found that bear, nor had they found any trace of Saraphina or her body. No news was good news. Ethan had been telling himself this all along. A year had passed. Even Penelope had given up, moving from refusing to accept Zio Chi's death to slowly coming to terms with it. Every day after work, Ethan would come to this mountain to search for Zio Chi. Today, Penelope was here too. She walked over to him, and seeing his gloomy expression, she couldn't help but comfort him. "Ethan, please accept my condolences. It's better for both you and Zio Chi if you accept reality. Let's set up a memorial for her soon. I'm sure she would be happy in heaven." Even Penelope had accepted that Saraphina was dead, but Ethan hadn't. He shook his head and smiled. "No need. Zio Chi isn't dead, so there's no need for a memorial. I believe she's still alive. I won't set up a gravestone for a living person, and I won't allow you to either. That would be a curse on her." Penelope was at a loss for words. Seeing him like this, she couldn't say anything more. She sighed. "I have something to do. I'll be going now." Feeling restless, Ethan walked up the mountain alone, following a cobblestone path to clear his head. He hadn't been walking for long when the weather suddenly changed. A heavy rain began to fall, fat drops splattering down. Ethan took off his jacket to shield himself from the rain and ran forward, looking for a pavilion to take shelter in. To his surprise, he found a small temple, or rather, a nunnery. He ran to the eaves of the nunnery. The autumn air, combined with the rain, was chilling. He was soaked to the bone, a pathetic sight. Feeling cold, Ethan knocked on the door. When no one answered, he pushed it open. He entered the nunnery and saw no one. He said, "Excuse me," and walked into what looked like an incense room. The door was open, and in the center of the room was a statue of Buddha. On a table in the room was a couplet, "Sincere hearts get answers. Sincere hearts get answers." Ethan looked at the 4 words for a moment. He wasn't a superstitious person, but for some reason, the words moved him. Whether it worked or not, praying to the gods was a form of comfort. Chapter 47. A familiar back. Ethan walked up to the statue of Buddha, bent his knees, and knelt before it. He closed his eyes and clasped his hands together. Lingchi, Ling Zio Chi, I don't know if you can hear me, but I have to say this. I need to tell you the truth. I am the real Ethan Lancaster. The man who died was not me, but my brother, Sterling Lancaster. Although we look very much alike, we are not twins. Sterling is my cousin. My father and his father are twins, and so are our mothers, which is why we look so similar. Sterling impersonated me, making you think he was me, but he wasn't. Sterling grew up abroad and only returned to the country as an adult. No one knew I had such a brother, not even my closest friends, let alone you. He first came back when you went missing. I was so racked with guilt over your disappearance that I fell into a mild depression. My family had Sterling take my place. I've been in treatment for my depression abroad all these years. All these years, because of your disappearance, I've never been able to find peace. I was filled with guilt and didn't dare to come back. My depression was actually cured a long time ago, but to avoid facing my mistakes, I pretended I was still sick. I kept hiding. He never expected that his avoidance would cause him to miss the woman he loved once again. The rain was pouring down, the sound of it drowning out everything else. Ethan, engrossed in his confession, didn't hear the footsteps behind him. A young nun ran over, intending to close the door to the incense room. To her surprise, she saw a stranger in the room, kneeling and confessing to the Buddha statue. The nun was young, in her early 20s, with a beautiful face and fair skin. The man's back seemed strangely familiar. She walked into the room, and when she saw him clearly, she was shocked. This man, was it him? Was it Ethan Lancaster? Even without seeing his face, just from his back, she could tell. She would recognize him even if he were reduced to ashes, let alone just his back. At hearing his voice, she was even more certain it was him. Her first instinct was to run, but before she could move, she heard his words. She froze, wanting to hear what this so-called secret was. She never expected to hear such a shocking secret. Ethan Lancaster hadn't died. The man who had died was Sterling Lancaster, who had taken his place. Hearing all this, 2 streams of tears ran down her face. This beautiful young nun was none other than the woman who had been missing for a year, Saraphina. So that was the truth. After Sterling's death, she had begun to investigate and had guessed most of it, but she had no concrete proof. Now, hearing it from Ethan's own lips, she was certain. Sterling was not the man she had had a crush on for decades, not the man whose homework she had done all through middle school, and not the man who had despised her. The man kneeling before the Buddha, confessing his sins, was him. The man she loved was not dead. He was right here, in front of her. Afraid that he would see her, Saraphina used the cover of the rain to slip out of the room. Listening to the patter of the rain, she squatted down and cried. A pair of feet appeared before her. Someone had walked up to her. Saraphina looked up. "Abbess?" Chapter 48, You're Not Dead. "Come with me, child." The abbess had seen and heard everything. The mortal world was too chaotic. This child's heart had not yet let go of the past. If her heart was not in the nunnery, she could not be kept here for long. They went into the abbess's room and closed the door. The abbess sighed and said kindly, "Child, I heard everything. That man is the one you told me about, isn't he? The man you almost died for twice?" Saraphina had nearly lost her life twice because of Ethan Lancaster. "Yes, it's him. I've loved him for over a decade, and now he's right here in front of me." But she couldn't go to him. She was a nun now, and nuns had to be free of worldly desires. "Sai, you were thrown into the wilderness and nearly eaten by a bear. It was a blessing that my sister and I found you and saved your life." Seeing that you had a connection with Buddha, I took you in and you became a nun, hoping you would forget the past. But it seems you still haven't let go of your worldly attachments. Since that's the case, I won't force you to stay. Go and finish what you haven't finished, cultivate the karma you haven't cultivated. When you have let go of the past and are willing to return, you can come back. We never force anyone here. Thank you, Abbess. Overcome with gratitude, Saraphina kowtowed to the abbess, then stood up and left the room. Seeing that the rain had stopped, she thought of Ethan and quickened her pace. She ran to the incense room, but it was empty. Her heart sank. He had already left. She had to stop him, see him, and tell him she wasn't dead. A surge of joy filled her, and she ran out of the nunnery. Ethan Lancaster, she shouted as she ran, her heart filled with the joy of their impending reunion. She reached the foot of the mountain but still saw no sign of him. Just as she was about to continue running, a car screeched to a halt in front of her, blocking her path. The car door opened, and the man who got out was none other than Julian Ellsworth. Saraphina, I knew you were on this mountain. I've finally found you. Come home with me. I've been looking for you for a whole year. My love for you is no less than Ethan Lancaster's. Julian grabbed her wrist, his grip tight, as if afraid she would run away. Let go of me, Saraphina struggled, her eyes anxiously searching in the direction Ethan had disappeared. Come home with me, Julian dragged her into the car without another word. Julian Ellsworth, let go of me, no matter how much she resisted, she was still taken back to his residence. Fiona is here too. She's had plastic surgery. You'll be surprised when you see her. Julian led her out of the car and into the house. She saw a woman sitting in the living room. The woman turned her head, and when she saw her face, Saraphina was not surprised, but horrified. This was Fiona Ellsworth. Why did she look exactly like her? The first time she saw her, she almost thought it was herself. Saraphina, you're not dead. Fiona was just as horrified. Seeing the living, breathing Saraphina, she shot to her feet. You're not dead, Fiona? It was indeed Fiona. Her voice hadn't changed at all. Saraphina, it really was her. She wasn't dead. Why couldn't she just die? Fiona wanted to curse at her, but she was afraid her brother would stop her. After Julian left, she excused herself to go to the restroom. When she returned, she was holding a brick. She knocked Saraphina out, tied her up, and smiled sinisterly. Saraphina, oh Saraphina, you've finally gotten what you deserve. Just you wait, I'll make you pay for all the pain I've been through because of my plastic surgery. Chapter 49. He wanted to kill you at the Lancaster group. Ethan Lancaster answered a video call from Fiona. He expected to see her face, but instead, he saw Saraphina's. His first reaction was that it was Fiona. He frowned in disgust. What are you doing, Fiona? Tying yourself up for fun? But the next second, another face that looked like Saraphina's appeared on the screen. This was the real Fiona. Ethan Lancaster, do you know who this woman is? It's been a year, you probably don't recognize her. Let me introduce you. This is the Saraphina you've been looking for all year. Seeing the panic on Ethan's face, Fiona burst out laughing. Ethan Lancaster, you're finally scared. This is how I felt when you made me get all that plastic surgery. It hurts, doesn't it? And there's more pain to come. With that, Fiona raised her hand and slapped Saraphina across the face. Slap! Stop! Although he didn't know how Fiona had found Saraphina, Ethan was sure that the person tied up was her. The slap woke Saraphina up. Fiona! Slap! Without a word, Fiona slapped her again. Saraphina cried out in pain. Hearing her cries, a sharp pain shot through Ethan's heart. He slammed his hands on the desk and roared, Stop, Fiona, what do you want? What will it take for you to let her go? I'll give you anything, just let her go. What do I want? First, you write a statement promising to help the Ellsworth group get back on its feet. Once the company is stable, I'll let her go. Without a second thought, Ethan started writing. Who was Fiona talking to? Mr. Lancaster. Sterling, Saraphina was taken aback. She looked at the phone screen and saw Ethan's face. Ethan was always so calm and collected. She had rarely seen such a panicked expression on his handsome face. A complex mix of emotions washed over her. Though her lips were bleeding, she smiled a bitter smile. Ethan, I'm sorry for making you so worried. Where are you? Give me the address, I'll be there right away. After giving him the address and hanging up, Fiona turned to Saraphina and sighed. Saraphina, do you know who tricked you into going to the outskirts of town all those years ago? You won't believe it, it was Ethan Lancaster. He wanted to kill you, ha 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 ha. You're lying, Saraphina's eyes widened. I don't believe you. Ethan was the one who had tricked her into going to the wilderness. How could that be? She didn't believe it. But thinking back to a few hours ago at the nunnery, when Ethan had been confessing to the Buddha statue, and how he had suddenly developed depression and gone abroad. Even if her disappearance had nothing to do with him, why would he get depression and go abroad, not even daring to come back and face everything? Was it all because of guilt? The thought was terrifying. The more she thought about it, the more she believed Fiona was telling the truth. The realization that Fiona was telling the truth sent a wave of nausea through her. How could it be Ethan? Even if he hated her, he wouldn't want to kill her. To want her dead, how much must he hate her? Did he despise her that much? Did he wish she were dead? Her face, which had been stinging from Fiona's slaps, suddenly went numb. The pain in her heart was far worse. It was as if someone had stabbed her in the chest, reached in, and ripped her heart out. The pain was excruciating. How does it feel, Saraphina? Are you in despair? I have no reason to lie to you. It was Ethan all along otherwise. Why do you think he went abroad? Why do you think he got depression? It's because he felt that your disappearance, your death, was all his fault. He felt guilty. Stop it, please. A hot tear rolled down Saraphina's cheek. Go ahead and cry. Cry all you want. You won't have the chance when Ethan gets here. Fiona laughed wildly. Chapter 50. It's all true. Ethan arrived in what felt like seconds, a journey that should have taken over 20 minutes compressed into 10. The door was unlocked. He knocked once and pushed it open. The first thing he saw was Saraphina, tied to a chair in the middle of the living room. It was her, it was really her. Her hair was short, but he knew it was his Saraphina. His heart leaped. Just as he was about to rush to her, Fiona appeared from behind, a dagger in her hand, pressing it to Saraphina's neck. So fast, usually it's impossible to get a meeting with Mr. Lancaster, but the moment Saraphina appears, you're here in a flash. Fiona, Ethan wished he could tear this woman to pieces. He gritted his teeth, his red eyes fixed on her face. Let Saraphina go or you'll regret it. Ethan was a man of his word. If Fiona dared to harm Saraphina, he would make sure she didn't see another sunrise. Brother, I never planned on living anyway. I've been Saraphina for a year, living in someone else's skin. It's disgusting. Every night, I dream of my face covered in boils. I'd rather be disfigured than live with Saraphina's face. Fiona had wanted to die for a long time. If it weren't for her family and the Ellsworth group, she wouldn't have lasted this long. Since she was going to die anyway, she might as well take Saraphina with her. Fiona didn't realize how terrifying she looked at that moment. She giggled, her voice a strange, high-pitched sound. Her facial expressions shifted rapidly from smiling to sad, her body twitching uncontrollably. She was becoming hysterical, like someone in the early stages of a mental breakdown. Fiona, we can talk about this. Just let Saraphina go first. Ethan was starting to get scared. Fiona was unstable. She could hurt Saraphina at any moment. He softened his tone, trying to reason with her. No, don't let me go, a voice said. It wasn't Fiona. It was Saraphina. Ziochi? Ethan was stunned. What was she saying? Had she gone mad too? Saraphina's face was calm, with no sign of mental distress. She looked at Ethan and said coolly, Ethan Lancaster, I'm going to ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly. If you lie, you won't have to kill me. I'll kill myself. Go on. I'm asking you, were you the one who tricked me into going to the outskirts of town all those years ago? Why did you do it? Ethan was shocked that she would ask such a question. He froze, staring at her. You, tell me, Ethan Lancaster. Answer my question, Saraphina pressed. It was just a prank. You were the class monitor, and you were always bossing me around. I'm a man, and my pride was hurt. It was my fault. I'm sorry. After a moment of hesitation, Ethan chose to tell the truth. A lie would eventually be exposed. He had indeed been motivated by his wounded pride. But when Saraphina heard him admit that he had tricked her into going to the outskirts of town, tears streamed down her face. Ethan Lancaster, you're a heartless bastard. Do you have any idea what you did back then? I was always on your case because I liked you. I wanted to have some kind of presence in your life, so I was always around you, annoying you, chattering away, just so you would remember me. If you were a stranger, I wouldn't have even spoken to you. You're such an idiot. You couldn't even see that. Saraphina's words were like a meteor crashing down on him, shattering him into a million pieces. She had really been in love with him for over a decade. Penelope was telling the truth. Chapter 51. I don't like you anymore. I've liked you for so long, and yet you despised me so much that you pushed me into a dark abyss. How old was I then? How could you do that to me, Ethan Lancaster? How could I have been so blind to fall in love with you? And now you're here to save me from this mess. Why don't you just let me die? Being killed by Fiona would be better than having to face you. Saraphina's cries were filled with a heart-wrenching sorrow. The moment she heard him admit that he was the one who had harmed her, her world came crashing down. The person she had loved for decades had done such a despicable thing to her. The thought of it made her never want to see him again, to wish he would just disappear from her life forever. Ethan Lancaster, I regret it. I don't like you anymore. He had thought her tears were enough to break his heart, but hearing her say she didn't like him anymore felt like being pushed off a cliff into a bottomless chasm. His face contorted in a pained expression. Zio-chi? Don't call me Zio-chi, you don't deserve to. I'm sorry. It was all my fault back then. I was too young. I didn't know what I was doing. I was foolish. Please forgive me, just this once, please. For the first time in his life, Ethan Lancaster begged for forgiveness. Forgive you? If apologies worked, what would be the point of having police? Fiona, you wanted to kill me to vent your anger, didn't you? Kill me, I'm begging you. Kill me, there's no point in living anymore. To be betrayed by the person I love most, what's the point? Kill me. Seeing Fiona frozen in place, stunned by the sudden turn of events, Saraphina struggled and pushed her neck toward the blade. You too? Fiona was completely bewildered, unable to comprehend what was happening. Just as she was about to say something to Saraphina, Saraphina suddenly kicked her hard. Ah! Fiona fell to the ground with a thud, the dagger clattering to the floor. With lightning speed, Ethan lunged forward, snatched the dagger, and, using his tie, quickly bound Fiona's wrists before she could get up. It all happened in a matter of seconds. 10 seconds, too short for Fiona to even register what was happening before she was subdued. After tying up Fiona, Ethan took the dagger, walked over to Saraphina, and cut the ropes that bound her. Does it hurt? Are you all right? Ethan took her hand, gently rubbing her wrist, his heart aching at the sight of the red marks left by the ropes. I'm fine, it doesn't hurt. Saraphina shook her head, turning away so he wouldn't see her face. Her cheeks were still burning from Fiona's slaps. If he saw, he would only worry more. Why are you hiding? Afraid I'll see your face? I've already seen it. I'll get you some ice. We'll go to the hospital later for some ointment. It'll be better by tomorrow. Ethan went to the kitchen, got some ice from the freezer, and gently pressed it to her cheek. Feel better? Thank you. With the ice on her cheek, the pains suddenly subsided. Ethan had never been so concerned about her before. It was the first time. As she took the ice from him, she felt a mix of nervousness, happiness, excitement, and contentment. While she had been shouting at him about not liking him, she had been secretly signaling for him to get ready to turn the tables. In reality, time had passed and she no longer hated him. She loved him with all her heart. No matter what he did, she loved him. Even if he were to kill her with his own hands, she would still foolishly love him. So, even though he had been the one to trick her into going to the outskirts of town, the moment she heard his apology, she had already forgiven him in her heart. Good. Ethan raised his hand and gently stroked her hair. It was real. She was alive. Her head was warm, her hand was warm. Saraphina was standing right here in front of him. Ethan didn't know how to describe the overwhelming joy he felt at that moment. Chapter 52. Lai seeing them so affectionate, watching Ethan's concern for Saraphina, a wave of indignation washed over Fiona. She gritted her teeth and glared at him. Ethan Lancaster, tell me, what does that little wench have that I don't? You didn't used to be like this, you used to be so caring, so kind, not so cold and heartless. And now you can be so cruel as to kill our child, that was your own flesh and blood your child, you killed our child. And you did this to me, are you a devil, Ethan Lancaster? How can you be so cruel? Is your blood cold? How could you kill your own child? No matter how many mistakes she had made, the fact that the child in her belly was his was undeniable now that everything was out in the open. Fiona dropped her gentle, innocent facade and openly called Saraphina a wench. If it weren't for Saraphina, she and Ethan would never have ended up like this. It was all her fault Saraphina ignored her. In her eyes, Fiona was a madwoman. If a madwoman bites you, do you bite her back? You'd be a madwoman too. Finally, Ethan answered Fiona's question coolly. Fiona, I think you'd better get some things straight. The reason my attitude toward you changed so drastically is that the person who was kind to you, the person you deceived, was never me. I don't like you, so why would I be kind to you? That was a fake Ethan Lancaster. Your acting is superb. It's a shame you're not an actress. You completely fooled that fake Ethan, but unfortunately for you, your acting is too clumsy for me. It's not enough to move me, and it certainly can't deceive me. From the very beginning, the person who had been kind to Fiona had not been him. The person who had slept with her that night could not have been him either. It was all his brother, Sterling. The child was Sterling's. His brother was dead, and Fiona was not worthy of carrying his child. The miscarriage was, in a way, karma. What did he mean? Was there another man in the world who looked exactly like him? Impossible, Ethan Lancaster, you're hilarious. You'd make up such a lie just to deceive me. I don't believe there's another man in the world who looks exactly like you. If you were a twin, I might believe you, but you're not. How could there be another man who looks exactly like you? That's hilarious. Ha ha ha. Fiona lay on the floor, throwing her head back and laughing hysterically. Ethan didn't even bother to come up with a good lie. How could there be two identical people in the world? What? Their parents are twins? Fiona was shocked, her eyes wide with disbelief. Saraphina nodded. It's true. Chapter 53. Bastard. Back in the U.S., when she had seen those two dogs and heard their owner say their parents were twins, which was why they looked so similar, she had understood. The man she had been with was not Ethan Lancaster, but his brother, Sterling Lancaster. He had let her believe he was Ethan, taking his place and being with her. That's why she had been so devastated when he died, thinking the man she loved was gone. Luckily, he was still alive and well. At this thought, Saraphina felt a sense of relief, as if she had been given a second chance. She rested her head on Ethan's chest. He naturally wrapped his arms around her. They held each other tightly, like a loving couple. By the way, Ethan, Saraphina said, lifting her head to look at him with a small smile. Although I had my suspicions, I always thought you were the one who had taken his place. I never thought that all these years it wasn't you here. Fate was a strange thing. After all this time, she had found her way back to the person she loved most. Suddenly feeling a wave of exhaustion, Saraphina pushed him away and stepped back. Seeing this, Ethan's heart ached. Just as he was about to speak, the police arrived. Sir, we're late, the assistant said as he came in. Ethan had contacted him to call the police before he left. The timing was perfect. Fiona was subdued, and the police came and took her away, along with the dagger, for evidence. After the police left with Fiona, Saraphina sighed, closed her eyes wearily, then opened them again. She picked up her jacket from the sofa, put it on, and walked out of the apartment without saying a word to Ethan. He watched her go calmly. Just as she was about to walk out the door, he suddenly unclasped his clenched fists, strode forward, and grabbed her shoulder. Wait, what is it? What is it? Saraphina, listen to me. This life and the next, you are my woman. Who gave you permission to leave? I forbid you from ever leaving my side. When she was missing, he felt as if his whole world was collapsing. No woman had ever made him feel so concerned, so anxious. She was the first, and the only one. I'm sorry. Before she could finish, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, giving her no chance to refuse or resist. Seeing Ethan embrace Saraphina, not only the assistant but even the police officers tactfully left the apartment, giving them some privacy. The assistant stood awkwardly for a moment, then also slipped out. He didn't want to be a third wheel. Ethan held her so tightly she could barely breathe. A wave of emotion washed over her, and her eyes welled up with tears. This man, didn't he despise her? Why was he stopping her from leaving now? If he hated her so much, shouldn't he be happy to see her go? This bastard. She felt the urge to cry, but she clenched her small fists and sniffled, forcing the tears back. Don't cry, Saraphina. Don't cry in front of him. Be strong. Crying won't solve anything. After composing herself, she took a deep breath, looked up, and pushed him away. Let go of me. I'm leaving. I'm going to find Penelope. She'll be so happy to know I'm alive. Penelope can wait. What's the hurry, or are you trying to leave me? Ethan held her hand, not letting her go. She took one step and was pulled back into his arms. Angrily, she punched his chest. Bastard, let go of me. This side of her was strangely endearing. His heart softened. Instead of letting go, he held her even tighter. She struggled, and he, afraid she would get away, had no choice but to hold her even more firmly. Let go of me, let go, she struggled, tears welling up in her eyes. Chapter 54. All my past affection was for you, what if I say no? Ethan looked at her tear-filled eyes, and the image of a wronged Lingchi flashed before him. She would follow him around, chattering in his ear. He would get annoyed and shout at her. She would freeze, then pout and look at him with those sad eyes. It was that expression that he couldn't stand. A pang of guilt shot through him. He wanted to pull her into his body, to share her pain and make her feel better. Looking at her delicate face, he acted on impulse, lowered his head, and kissed her tightly pursed lips. MMMPH, her mind went blank. She stared at the man leaning over her, completely stunned. What was he doing? He was kissing her. Her eyes were wide with shock, but she didn't stop struggling. In fact, his sudden kiss made her struggle even more fiercely. But his kiss was too possessive, giving her no chance to breathe or escape. By the end of the kiss, she felt as if her soul had been sucked out of her. His expert kissing made her head spin and her limbs go numb. She gave up struggling and went limp in his arms. Feeling the restless woman in his arms melt like butter, he finally broke the kiss and held her. Silly, answer me a question. I never told you about my cousin and me. How did you know? When he had told her the truth, there had been no surprise in her eyes. It was clear she already knew. But how? She was out of breath, limp in his arms. After a few moments, she looked up at him and answered, At first, I thought someone had taken his place. I thought he was Ethan Lancaster, and you were the imposter. I never thought, she laughed, a hint of self-deprecation in her voice. I never thought that all these years, Ethan Lancaster had been a fake, that he was Sterling Lancaster and not my Ethan. And all this time, I thought you were the fake one, but you were the real Ethan. If she had known he was the real Ethan back then, none of this would have happened. She would have told him without hesitation, I am Lingchi, and they wouldn't have been hurt so badly. Fate was a cruel mistress. Enough, don't say any more. Let me talk. He had so much he wanted to say to his Lingchi, his Zio-chi. He pressed his finger to her lips, silencing her, then began to speak slowly. You know, after I tricked you into going to the outskirts of town and you disappeared, I haven't had a single day of peace. I'm not good at expressing my emotions, but I can tell you this clearly, I love you. I was too young back then. My feelings for you in school, every night before I went to sleep, I would look forward to seeing you, but then I would get annoyed seeing you in the classroom. When I got first place in the grade and stood on the stage with the trophy, all I could think about was you. But when you nagged me about not doing my homework, I hated being controlled by you. I looked forward to seeing you, but I also hated seeing you. I craved your attention, but I also hated being controlled by you. Chapter 55. The grand finale at this point, Ethan's voice cracked. He looked at Saraphina with even more tenderness. I didn't know that such a complex emotion had a beautiful name. Love. It wasn't until I lost my temper and played that prank on you, and you disappeared, that I suddenly realized you had become irreplaceable to me. I love you, Zio-chi. I love you, Saraphina. Whether you are Zio-chi or Saraphina, I am sure of one thing, and that is that I love you. It was the first time Ethan had ever said so much to her. Saraphina stared at him, taking in every word. But in the end, only 3 words remained in her mind, I love you. He loved her. Tears streamed down her face. He really loved her? This man who had despised her so much actually loved her deeply. The tears she cried now were not of sadness, but of happiness, of being moved, of being overwhelmed. Silly, why are you crying? There's nothing to cry about, you'll get wrinkles. I'm the one who should be crying. Fate has been so kind to me. All these years, I never thought I would see you again. And not only did fate grant me that wish, it also allowed us to get to know each other, to say, I love you to each other. His eyes were filled with a heart-wrenching tenderness as he gently wiped away her tears. Saraphina couldn't help but laugh. She gave him a playful glare and said with a stuffy nose, You're one to talk. Someone used to call me ugly all the time. Her tone was slightly resentful, but mostly playful. Her soft voice made his heart melt. He raised an eyebrow. Actually, I like to say the opposite of what I mean. I was afraid that if I called you pretty, you would get arrogant. Pride comes before a fall, you know, so I called you ugly. That way, you had room to improve and become even more beautiful. But I was really ugly back then. No, you weren't. I thought that birthmark was as beautiful as a flower. Don't you think so? It was like a blooming datura flower, and with your beautiful black eyes, it was stunning. Ethan's words were as sweet as honey. Saraphina snorted, playing along. Then all the times I called you dumb were also the opposite of what I meant. No, I was really dumb back then, Ethan said, his gaze fixed on her. Otherwise, I wouldn't have missed so many years with you. Luckily, in the end, fate had allowed him to find the woman he loved. Saraphina shook her head, looking deep into his eyes. It's all right. When I saw you again 3 years ago, I thought you had already found someone else to be with you now. I'm already so grateful. I dare not ask for more. Silly, I promise you, from now on, all my past affection, my present confessions, and my future tenderness will all be for you alone. Ethan leaned in close to her ear, his voice rich and deep, like a fine vintage wine, incredibly pleasant to hear. His warm breath tickled her ear, and her knees went weak. This must be the legendary voice that could make one's ears pregnant. Sensing her reaction, Ethan let out a low, triumphant chuckle, lifted her chin, and kissed her deeply. In the distance, a fiery red sun was slowly setting. But for them, happiness was just beginning to rise the end.